Entitled Karen tried to steal my dad's inheritance. I apologize in advance for not knowing the legal terms in English. This took place in a non-English speaking country, so I've tried to explain this the best I can. Before I begin, here is some background info on the inheritance laws of my country. In my country, if you own land, you can't do whatever you want with it when your spouse dies. That is, if you have direct heirs, aka children. So let's say that you and your spouse own a large piece of land and you have 3 children together. Your spouse dies and you want to sell the property. Before you can do that though, you have to give your children their share of the inheritance from their deceased parents. It has to be a fair price, so market value. Once you've paid them out, you can then do whatever you want with the property. If you haven't or aren't capable of doing so, you can't sell. So, now onto the story. My paternal grandma and her 2 sisters owned a cabin together. When this took place in 2006, the oldest sister had already passed away and her share was inherited by her children, my dad's cousins. They're not important to the story. This story is about my grandma, my dad, and my grandma's youngest sister, Karen. Karen was the baby of the family, the golden child. She was superficially charming, had married up, and was very used to getting her way. I don't think she was ever told no. Now, Karen loved the cabin and spent most weekends there. My dad's cousins were not interested in selling their share of the property, but Karen had been wanting grandma's share for years. My grandma and dad spent very little time there, but grandma paid her share on all repairs on the property. Another thing about my grandma was that she never dealt with money of any kind. Grandpa took care of everything related to property, taxes, etc. He died a few years before this took place, and my dad had to take on everything related to this, as grandma was too anxious to do it. She never paid dad his part of the inheritance from grandpa, and Karen was well aware of this. In addition, grandma had battled cancer for a number of years at this point. It wasn't super aggressive, and she was given medicine that allowed her to be comfortable. She wasn't going to drop dead any minute. Still, she was reduced physically and was a very anxious person in general. In the winter of 2006, Karen paid grandma a visit. She stayed overnight, something she never did. A few days later, dad called grandma for a chat. Grandma mentioned that Karen had been there and that they'd reached an agreement about the cabin, that Karen had brought some papers for grandma to sign. My dad immediately knew something was amiss. What papers? It wasn't the deed, was it? Well, yes, grandma confirmed. She told dad that Karen had come to see her, that she wanted to buy her share of the cabin, that she'd brought the deed already, it just needed grandma's signature. She said that Karen had asked her for a price, and grandma, who knew nothing about money and the actual worth of anything, suggested $3,000. I think that's roughly what it is. It's a different currency, roughly the sum in today's money. Dad was livid. Firstly, of course, that's nowhere close to the actual value of the property. And secondly, the way Karen went about it, she basically ambushed grandma with the deed. She stayed overnight as well to make sure she kept complete control of the situation so that grandma couldn't call dad to discuss it with him. Dad wasn't opposed to the idea of selling grandma's share to Karen, but it would have to be at market price, and Karen knew this. Dad immediately called her, told her this was unacceptable and that he was going to contest the sale. Karen just told him that that was what grandma wanted, that she set the price herself and Karen had done nothing wrong. Dad got a lawyer ASAP and so did Karen. They went back and forth the entire spring and summer. Dad refused to relent. Karen kept proclaiming her right. Grandma was distraught. To her, a feud within the family was the worst thing that could ever happen. She begged Dad to let it go. Dad refused. This was his inheritance. At the very beginning of 2007, it finally went to trial. The trial only lasted a couple of hours. According to my parents, the judge threw the book at Karen. The sale was a blatant violation of our country's inheritance laws and was ruled null and void. The ownership was transferred back to grandma. My mum later told me that Karen walked into the courtroom all cocky, self-assured, there to claim her right. As the judge kept going through the documentation and kept on asking questions, her demeanour became more and more defeated. At the end, she just hung her head. A week after the trial, grandma passed away. Karen didn't attend the funeral. Oh wow. Before all of this, Karen and dad got on really well. After, they would never speak again. After grandma died, dad wanted to sell his share of the cabin, but he would never sell to Karen. Ever. That was forever off the table. He approached his cousins, explained the entire ugly situation, and proposed them to buy his share. Thankfully, they were interested and bought him out at a fair price. After her defeat in court and the death of the sister she tried to scam, Karen spent very little time at the cabin. For the first time in her life, she'd been told a firm no. This was something she'd really wanted, and for the first time it didn't go her way. Clearly it was too bitter. There's no happy ending to this story, only a message that greed and entitlement can ruin your prospects and burn family relations to the ground. Well, there we go. No doubt about it. Greedy family members are the worst. And it's something I've talked about on my channel before. I'm very fortunate in my family that people like this just do not exist. In fact, I've seen just one fight in my whole massively extended family, which covers, you know, all of England pretty much, and then a lot of Mauritius as well. And that's all I've ever seen. And it was like 2 people I don't even know, just at someone's party, like probably 10 to 15 years ago. Apart from that, easy dubs all around. Everyone's pretty chill, which is good. Suits me. I would hate to be in a family that had as much conflict as this. So yes, I'm grateful. But there we go. I suppose it is really a relatively common occurrence. Let me know in the comments down below. What's your family like? How many people are in it? And do they argue? I would love to know. He got arrested over a receipt. In my 20s, I worked for a very popular theme park in Florida. I worked quick service food at a resort one year. One day, I was placed in my favorite position, pizza back. Basically, I was responsible for making pizza, baked ziti, and breadsticks. The resort guests could call in special pizza orders, and guests could order pizza at the counter as well. Don't ask me why, but I rocked at this position. I was very quick and consistent, so I was often placed back there to my delight, as there was air conditioning and a walk-in fridge. Anyone who's done kitchen work knows how most professional kitchens feel as though they're bordering on hell's territory. I'm in the back keeping a steady pace when a tall man with light brown hair and a beer gut starts arguing with my co-worker Kira up front at Pizza Fronts. The man claims he'd been waiting for his pizza for 40 minutes. When a guest orders a pizza, they're given a copy of the order and a wireless pager that will go off when their pizza is ready. Since the pizza is the most expensive item on the menu, and there have been people attempting to claim multiple, it became policy to have the guest pay for the pizza first. Once the pager went off, bring it back with the receipt so we can then mark it and they receive their pizza. The receipt also has a time on it. Now Kira asks to see the man's receipt to check the time. He gets angry and yells at her. He screams that he wants his dang pizza. Kira became flustered and comes back there asking me where his pizza was. I told her that nobody waits 40 minutes when I'm back there and that his pizza would be ready when it's ready. She refused to go back up there because he was so rude, so I went instead. I asked him politely for his receipt as it had a timestamp. Sir, I say, I apologize for the wait. May I see your receipt, please? No? Why do I need to show my receipt? Sir, it's our policy to ask every guest for a receipt before they receive their pizza. That's bull. First, that woman asks, now are you accusing me of stealing a frickin' pizza? No, sir, it's our policy. Screw your policy. Give me my dang pizza. Kira then calls our small and adorable manager. I'll call her Rose. Rose comes up to the front and politely asks the man what's wrong. I've waited almost an hour for my dang pizza, and those 2 female dogs have enough nerve to ask for a dang receipt. Sir, please don't use harsh language towards our workers. Asking for a receipt is policy. I can use whatever language I want to. By this time, it's clear the man is possessed or drunk, so I call another manager. This manager, I'll call Antonio, comes out and joins Rose to figure out the situation. The man continues to cuss us out. He says that Kira and me are female dogs and he plans to get us fired. He also plans to get Rose and Antonio fired as well. Apparently, we're accusing him of stealing by asking for a receipt. He cussed more vulgarly and loudly. People are covering their children's ears or leaving at this point. The front desk staff looked dazed. 2 guys that were managers of the gift shop called security. Security shows up and takes over. Sir, are you a guest of this resort? Yeah, what about it? Well, we need to verify your identity. Can you show us your ID or room card, please? Good lord, it starts all over again. The man refuses and cusses the security out. He calls them fake cops and says they can't actually do anything to him. He's going to get all of us fired. The fake cops threaten to call Orange County Police if he doesn't comply. So he says, call Orange County. And guess what? They did. The man is then arrested in the middle of the food court. Once the cops show up, he miraculously calms down and shows his room ID. His wife and 8-year-old son were at the pool. A worker had to go and get her. She was a blonde woman and pretty. She walked in, looked at him, and walked back outside. She had an expression that said, "I'm done." His face dropped as they walked him out in handcuffs. Due to policy, the whole family had to leave that day with no refund, and he was banned for life. They'd come there for their son's 8th birthday. Throughout all of this, it was kind of funny. Until that last line. That has just made it really quite sad. Okay, there we go for our first story. Now, interestingly, OP actually left a little edit at the end saying, for anyone wondering, the man, as we probably could have guessed, actually had a receipt crumpled in his pocket and he'd waited 10 minutes. My guess is that he was upset about something else and was just taking it out on the world. Well, that is normally what happens, to be fair. When someone really is unbelievably angry, as in for no real reason, and just really stressed and just horrible, it normally is a reflection of what's going on in their own life. But yeah, this is definitely not the first time this guy's done this based off his wife's response, and it just seems like a horrible bloke in general. As I said though, like, that last line is the sad line. I feel bad for his son. Like, his birthday's just been ruined because of his entitled dad. Oh well, 10 more years and then he can disown him, I suppose. I actually don't know at what age you can disown your parents, but hey, he's gonna have to wait a while. Now for our next entitled people story. Entitled couple's meltdown equals my luxury upgrade. Back in 2008, my partner and I took a gay cruise through South America. Picture this: 3 days in Rio during Carnival, a week of debauchery on the high seas, and wrapping up in fabulous Buenos Aires. Pure bliss, well, mostly. Back then, the concept of a boatload of homos docking in port was breaking news in some places. Everyone was friendly, but I still felt like one misstep by any of us would be a permanent black mark on gays everywhere. The stakes were high. Now, my partner and I weren't exactly rolling in it. Inside cabin poor, but we splurged on a few nights at a nice hotel after the cruise. It turns out, so did half the queens on that ship. By 10 AM, there was a line snaking out the lobby doors, all of us hungover and politely waiting for our turn to drop bags and wander off until check-in. Enter them. A couple behind us decided they were simply too important to wait. One of them had some VIP, ultra diamond, titanium, whatever status with the hotel, which supposedly came with early check-in. The clerk, who had the patience of a saint, explained that early check-in was based on availability, and at 10 AM, there wasn't any. But these two, oh no, they lost their entitled minds. Voices were raised. The clerk's intelligence was questioned. Her English, which was impeccable but slightly accented, we were in Buenos Aires, was mocked. It was full Karen energy, but double-barrel gay edition. Security eventually stepped in. When it was finally our turn, I felt like I needed to make amends for the sins of our people. I apologized to the clerk, told her that nobody should be spoken to like that, and I casually mentioned how much we appreciated her professionalism. We had a lovely little chat about travel and the cruise, while she processed what I assumed was a placeholder for when check-in time rolled around. Except it wasn't. With a smile, she handed us 2 keys for a suite. A massive suite with a stunning view and rooftop pool access right down the hall. Enjoy your stay, she said with a wink. And enjoy we did. So, to the entitled queens who screamed their way into oblivion, gracias, darlings. That view was everything. Okay, now this story is just brilliant. Like, so good. So good. It's just great to see just entitled people getting calmer. That is pretty much what my channel was built on in the first place. And this story here is just a great reminder of that. Phenomenal scenes. And I'm gonna be honest, a gay cruise through South America sounds like so much fun. I mean, I'm not gay, sadly, but get me on there. I think I'd have a great time. Entitled Disney mum cuts the line, so I get her and her kids kicked off the ride. Today, I visited Disney for the first time since I was 9 years old. Super fun day. Lines longer than I remember, but maybe I was just excited back then. My friend and I discovered the single rider lanes and took advantage of that due to the shorter wait times, and it didn't matter to us to ride separately. As we were waiting in that line, a family of 4, mum, 2 daughters and dad, walked through the middle of the line holding hands. Several people are disgruntled, asking what they're doing. The mum claims they forgot something on the ride. They make it to the part of the ride where single riders, fastpass riders, and the original line are all in a similar area. One of the ladies behind me screams, "What did you forget?" Everyone in the single rider lane is fuming as we all realize she's just waiting to get on the ride with her kids. They get shuffled into the pre-ride movie area before my friend and I. We're shocked that no one brought it to any of the staff's attention. Meanwhile, all the single riders are trauma bonding over this lady's boldness and entitlement. So, when my friend and I get shuffled into the pre-ride movie area, I tell one of the staff what the lady and her kids looked like and what she did. He says, at this point, since they're already in the line to board the car, he can't do much. We make it to the car boarding line, and lo and behold, there's the lady and her 2 kids. I stop yet another employee and explain the situation. She says she will let someone know, but walks in the opposite direction of the rider operators. Then, one of the kids runs up to a man directly behind my friend and me, pulls on his arm, and says, "Come on, Dad." We turn around, and the dad is behind us. He refuses to join his family, probably because he heard everyone in the line complaining about what they did. So everyone starts speaking louder. The whole line. What a terrible example to set for your children. What makes them feel so entitled? Everyone is waiting the same. Some people for hours. Why do they think they're special? Why lie to get what you want? The whole line is loudly speaking, so these people know exactly what we think of them. The dad continues to hang back and let people get in front of him as he hangs his head in shame, and his family inches closer to the front of the line. I had had enough at that point. I talked to the people in front of me and asked if I could go let the ride operators know what happened, because I'll be danged if they're getting on this ride. I asked the people in front of me to let me warn the ride operators, and they were all happy to step aside. The mum is blocking the walkway because they're next up. I tap her on her side and say, "Excuse me," and stare her down. She slides over without a word. I then tell the ride operator, this lady and her 2 children cut the entire line through the single rider's line, claiming she forgot something. You can ask anyone in this line. She gives me the most evil, disgusted, shocked glare. I walk back to where my friend was, and another woman goes up to the line operator to verify my story. Disney Mum is trying to say that both of us are lying. But then everyone in the line starts yelling and telling the same story, determined not to let her or her kids on the ride. They were eventually escorted out the side door, and everyone in the line genuinely clapped. Oh, I mean, these are just the worst sort of people, line cutters. I don't really know why that they feel entitled to do this. Like, literally, this is the number one sort of example of everyone is in the exact same boat, right? I mean, everyone knows how queues work. Everyone knows that at Disney, a lot of the time queues are pretty ridiculous, but everyone sort of accepts that. That is Disneyland or Disney World. And you're all in it together. Like, you're all going to get on the ride. Don't worry. Everyone knows it's going to take ages, but that's it. Now, yes, if you're a single rider, that's part of the point. You go much quicker. If you're in the, what's it called? Like the quick pass lane, whatever it is. I've forgotten what it's called. You'll let me know in the comments down below. You also go quicker, but that's fine because you've paid for that or you're going on your own. Whereas this is just a disgrace and is obviously going to annoy lots and lots of people that are, acting within the rules. Why do this? Surely, I mean, this is the thing that I always say actually on these stories is that if you have any morals, you just wouldn't do this. But then again, these people have no morals, which is why they do it in the first place. Because I'm thinking about myself, like I wouldn't be able to live with people shouting at me or just knowing that I'm cutting them in line, but then I wouldn't do it because I'm that sort of person. Whereas, well, a normal person, whereas this person is just disgusting, obviously. Respect to her husband, although if my wife was doing this, I just couldn't be with her. Genuinely, that would be enough to not be with somebody if they were that impolite, because it's just so ignorant and rude and just so disrespectful and obviously entitled, thinking you're above everyone else. So it says a lot about a person that they do something like this. And I agree. Like, what sort of example is this to set for your kids? Now for our final entitled people story of this episode. Coworker fancies herself my mum. Quits when I correct her delusion. When I, 38 years old, non-binary, was in my early 30s, I used to work in the office of an apartment complex for university students. Our front office staff had a ridiculous turnover rate, to the point that for over half my 4 years there, I was the only full-time front staff. Management hired a new full-time person, Emily. Emily was a few years younger than me, multilingual, had a degree in hospitality and sales, and had just moved to my state. 2 important things about me. My mum had recently passed away, and I am overweight. Part of my job involved lots of lifting and carrying heavy packages up the long, steep hill that our complex was situated over, so I'm fairly muscular and rather fit under my extra fluff, which I'm very proud of. By contrast, my mum never got above £110 in her whole life. She meant well, but almost 30 years of her picking at me about my weight had made it a sore subject. Things went well for a while, and then Emily's obsession with healthy eating started. I mentioned a restaurant, and she pulled up a menu to tell me what to order with a comment about being my mum now. I shut it down and told her about the loss of my family. She brought meals for me and then got offended I didn't want them. She saw my soda and told me not to drink those anymore. Not recommended, she told me. I had a snack and she opened a bag of trail mix and crossed to my desk with it. I saw what was about to happen in slow motion. I flung both hands over my snack to shield my food, and she upended the entire bag onto my plate. I don't even like nuts, so I had to throw the whole thing away. I told her several times to stop. She apologized but didn't change the behavior. I involved management, and they said she was just being friendly. This went on for at least 6 months. Then came the final straw. I don't remember what brought it up, but she was talking to a resident, glanced across at me, and chirped, "I'm teaching her to be healthy." Now ignore the misgendering here, which I also talked to her about repeatedly. I'm non-binary, and I use they/them. I'm like her mum. I saw red. Usually I would have waited for the resident to leave and addressed her patiently in private again. This time though, I couldn't. It was one pick too many, not least of all because she didn't even address the comment to me, but about me to one of our residents. I snapped. I pushed out of my desk and I said something to the effect of, "I had a mum, she's dead, and you're not her. Stop trying to act like it." The entire climate of the office changed. Emily stopped talking to me and eventually quit, which I still feel bad about, but only a little. Management froze me out for making the workplace hostile, and I quit myself not long after, and I'm much happier where I am now. I mean, you definitely shouldn't feel bad about Emily quitting there, because she's just a terrible person. Like, what is she doing? And also, I guess in that one moment you made the workplace hostile, but surely there's enough context there, and you've had these discussions with HR management before, so they know what's going on, for them to then come back and say, "Okay, look, we'd much rather you didn't do this, but we understand why you did it, and we can make an exception this time. Emily is going to be let go, and you can have a warning," rather than you getting frozen out for making the workplace hostile. What are you supposed to do then? Just allow someone to just bully you in the workplace? Surely not. That's insane. And I get it. Like, yeah, you probably shouldn't have done it. In a perfect world, you wouldn't have done it in front of a resident, but also who cares? Like, you've got to stand up for yourself at some point. But good on you for quitting, and I'm happy that, yeah, you're happier now. But Jesus, again, I don't know why I'm always surprised here, but what a terrible person. Someone actually says in the comments, "You were not the one who made the workplace hostile. Somebody in management was friends with Emily and protected her when they should have given her the consequences of being disgustingly horrible. Body shaming, bullying, contaminating food, which is another point. I mean, imagine if you were allergic to nuts. I thought about that when I was reading this. Goodness me. But yeah, maybe that is what happened. Maybe someone in management was mates with Emily, and it's a shame, but again, it's probably a good thing you got out of that work environment. There we go. That's it. That's going to do it for this one. Goodness me. I mean, this is a thing. I've not been on Entitled Parents, Entitled People for a while. Sometimes I forget how just ridiculously, I want to say a stronger word here, but it's probably against YouTube TOS and Spotify TOS and Podcast TOS, so I'm not going to. But you can use your imagination as to what word I wanted to use there. Silly, dumb, stupid, etc. Some people are. Creepy male staff kept invading our privacy on a school trip. I recently went on a residential trip where the arrangement was that girls stayed downstairs while boys stayed upstairs. Female adults usually stayed near the girls' dorms, and male adults were with the boys. However, there was a man, let's call him John, who made me feel extremely uncomfortable throughout the trip. John was on the same minibus as me on the way there. I was quiet and reserved because the younger kids were immature, so I kept to myself. When I spoke to the adults, I was calm and polite. Things though changed when we got to the dorms. I was assigned a room with girls my age, where I felt more comfortable. John would constantly come into our dorm without knocking, which felt invasive. He would just stand there and ask, "What are you guys doing?" It happened so often that I spoke to a friend about it, and she agreed it was weird. What made it worse was how he would single me out. He'd bend down to look at me in my bunk and even found excuses to come into the room, like making jokes about me wanting a cup. The breaking point was when I walked into the dorm one day to find my friend nearly naked with only a towel covering her front while her back was exposed. John had been lingering outside our dorm just moments before. I told her about it, and we decided that I'd guard the door so no men could just walk in. This annoyed me because we shouldn't have to go to such lengths for privacy. On the last night, when we were being loud and having fun, he barged in again without knocking and started talking about reading the Bible to us. One of the girls is Muslim, so we tried to politely tell him that wasn't necessary, but he ignored us. I finally snapped and said, "It's like you're obsessed with our room because you keep coming in without knocking. You don't do this with the boys' rooms." He got defensive and claimed that he already dealt with the boys' noise and accused me of acting out because others were around. He said, "You're normally quiet. Don't give me verbal now." I stood up for myself, saying, "Don't make assumptions about me just because you don't know me. I'm comfortable with these people now, so I'm being myself." He dismissed me, told me to mind my business, and left me feeling shut down and disrespected. Later, he returned while one of the girls was still changing. Instead of apologizing or leaving, he turned around and insisted she was changed enough because she had a bra top on. He stayed in the room to read the Bible despite everyone asking him to leave. This whole experience left me feeling disrespected and uncomfortable. Privacy was completely disregarded, and his behavior crossed so many boundaries. Am I overreacting, or is this as inappropriate as it felt to me? And OP has actually left a couple of edits on the bottom of this one, giving even more context. On the way back home, John made another unsettling comment. He started telling a group of 14-year-olds that someone had once told him they found him attractive. The kids immediately pushed back, saying, "That's a lie. You're 40 and we're children. Nobody would say that." Instead of addressing their discomfort seriously, he laughed it off and said, "I'm married. Why would you say that?" Even though no one had made any such claim about him. Sorry, so he said that one of the group of 14-year-olds had once told him they found him attractive. I mean, first of all, obviously that's not true. Secondly, how weird is that? What a weird thing to say. Here's another edit from OP. During an ice skating session, John would hold the hand of a 15 to 16-year-old girl under the pretext of helping her, even though penguins, the skating aids, were available, and she wasn't even that bad at skating. The girl actually kept trying to distance herself by leaning on the wall and avoiding conversation, but John stayed close, repeatedly talking to her and invading her personal space. Knowing how creepy he'd already been, this behavior didn't feel like innocent help. It felt calculated and unnecessary. What makes it even stranger is that there was a boy around the same age who kept falling repeatedly, even with the help of the penguins. But despite this, John never went over to assist him or offered to hold his hand to guide him. Instead, no, he focused solely on the girl, who was clearly better at ice skating than he was. This discrepancy in his behavior makes his actions towards the girl feel even more unsettling and deliberate. And then finally, OP has added this edit for clarification. When I said lingering behind the door, I didn't mean just walking around or near our door. This guy was right at our door, head on the door, and completely still, almost like he was trying to listen in or spy on us. It wasn't just casual lingering, his whole body was pressed against the door, standing silent. It was way more unsettling than I initially described. I didn't actually use the right words before, but I hope this gives you a better picture of what happened. Oh my goodness me, John is a nonce. Okay, and there we go. Just to answer OP's question of did I overreact? No, and if anything, you didn't react enough, to be honest. Now, I'm trying to work out from this, and OP doesn't explicitly say how old they are. I presume that they are also 15, 16 years old, a 15, 16-year-old girl. I don't know that 100% for sure, though, but that makes the most sense from reading what we just read, right? I think you guys would probably agree with that. Let me know if I've got that wrong. But nonetheless, what I've just read is insane. Like, you've got to go to the authorities or something about this. At the very least, tell a female adult, another member of staff that's on that trip. Like, the cops have to be involved. This is illegal, what's going on here. There are rules in place to stop male teachers, being in private areas for female students, and vice versa as well. I mean, for any teacher, but yeah, I just don't really know what was going on. Where were the female staff in all of this? So weird that a teacher like this, just a predator, let's be honest, is able to do this. And not only when you're away on a school trip, but also like, yeah, just in general life, it seems like, ice skating. So odd. This guy is to be honest, is clearly a nonce. I know that's not a word you use in America, but I don't want to say I mean, you can say pedo, can't you? I'm not going to get demonetized for that. It's just a pedophile. Simple as that. And it's a very disturbing story to start off today's episode, but there we go. That is that for that one. Now for our second story. I know I'm not family anymore, but give me the details for your destination wedding. Welcome to my family drama. So, I'm getting married in April and having a destination wedding in Cyprus. Because we have family all over the world, and some have jobs where they need to close dates like a year in advance, we sent out save the dates as soon as we closed the venue, back in May. One of the people I sent a save the date to is my stepbrother's wife. Then, they started divorce proceedings this summer. Now, I've never liked her. She's actually quite a nasty person, and she only ever speaks to me when she needs something. When I sent out the actual invites, I sent them with the names of all the invitees. So I sent my brother an invite with his name, his stepdaughter, his daughter from a previous marriage who I see as a niece, and their child together. Her name was not on the invite. I knew this meant that it was very likely her children could not come, since they would have to leave the country, and she could prevent that, which I completely understand and is totally in her right. I understood that when I sent the invites. My stepbrother told me straight away that he and the kids would likely not be able to make it, but he'd let me know if things changed by the time he needed to RSVP. So that was 2 months ago. I've actually not spoken to his wife since long before the divorce proceedings started. Today she texts me, translated. Hi OP, when's the wedding and what hotel are you staying at? Send me those details so I can check the options to come. Now I'm thinking to myself, girl, you aren't family and this is a small destination wedding. What are you thinking? So I called my dad and stepmum to consult how to respond to her. Apparently, my stepmum asked if she could take her son, since my stepbrother can't go, and she wanted him to come to the wedding and see my nibbligs from North America. So my stepsister-in-law started declaring plans already from that request, thinking that entitled her to an invite. I told my stepmum, I can understand her wanting to come if her ex-husband is coming with the kids, but what right does she think she has to come without my actual brother? My stepmom and dad agreed that she's delusional and helped me verbalize a response to her. So I sent to her, hi stepsister-in-law, I sent the invite with all the details to my stepbrother. You can arrange that with him. I figured, okay, she'll understand that the initial invite was to her as my brother's wife, as in it only applies to them as a unit, but no. OP, I don't know if you know, but we are together. We're in divorce proceedings. My save the dates, she actually said invite, but she never got an invite, just a save the dates, was deleted. Hence, I've requested the details from you. So this woman, who I have near zero relationship with, who is no longer even speaking to my brother, thinks that she's still invited to my wedding. I spoke with my stepmom again, as she's always been the only one who could match her crazy. She apologized for opening this can of worms and told me she'd speak to her and explain the situation. I just can't imagine what la-la land she's living in, that she thinks if she isn't even speaking to my brother, and he can't even come to my wedding, that she can. Yeah, odd. And I think, to be honest, this woman is just after a free destination wedding. I mean, actually, you've not said that you're paying for the flights, which makes this even more weird. And again, don't know what country this is taking place in, so it might be close to Cyprus, but it seems unlikely. Anyway, so this woman is willing to pay for her flights to Cyprus. Then I suppose, yeah, you get the free wedding, which is always great, but it's strange, again, why you'd even want to be there. Maybe the answer is what you said, she is just in la la land, but from your stepbrother's point of view, it makes sense as to why he's not with her anymore. She just seems crazy. I'd also love a reply from her to see what she says to this. Like, oh, what? I thought I was invited the whole time. Don't worry, I'm still going to come. Opie's actually said in the comments down below, this isn't even the worst of her. She's just a bit of a sociopath. I mean that in the clinical sense. She lacks empathy and the ability to see beyond herself. She has a habit of abandoning her kids with my parents because they live nearby, and she just can't be bothered with them and finds taking care of them a nuisance. Always good to hear from a parent. Her daughter is old enough that some days after school, she just comes to my parents to avoid being near her. Yeah. That's probably all we need to know about this person. Let's move on. Karen gets upset over first come, first serve at a coffee shop. Ends up getting taken down by a cop. This was about a year ago in the winter, one weekend morning. I was waiting for a haircut appointment, so I walked next door into a popular coffee shop. The place was busy, but not packed all the way. There were 2 people in front of me, and shortly, a few behind me. The person in front of me had an expensive coat, expensive jewelry, and the whole I want to talk to the manager look. She gave her order, which took a while. Something like blah blah latte with 2 pumps of this, a little of that, this type of milk, 1 pump of this, and so on. She was told it may take a few minutes, and she stood by the other 2 or 3 people waiting for her order. She was asked for the name on the cup to be called out, and it was Karen. It was my turn to order. I don't need much to make myself happy. I don't need anything complicated. I can sum up my coffee order in 1 word: large. And sometimes I have to clarify with large and black. Surprisingly, the guy behind the counter repeated my order and somehow was able to turn it into a full paragraph. A large American blah blah with no this, no that, no this, blah blah. Is that simple large coffee? Yes. The guy turned around, took 2 steps to the other counter, fills up a cup, I pay, and hands it to me. All good. I start to walk away with my cup of coffee when I notice the Karen looking at me with a WTF look on her face. I see her take 2 steps to the counter and start the whole, I need to speak with the manager. I stop to look and watch the scene. The argument kind of started with a, where the heck is my latte, and why the heck did the ratty slob behind me get his first? What happened to first come, first serve? The guy behind the counter tried to explain the difference between the orders, but she wasn't having it, and she was getting louder. There was cursing, yelling, and all the fireworks. I see one person who was in the back of the line unzip his coat, revealing a police uniform, making his way up to make his presence known. So you now have a manager behind the counter arguing with Karen, and the cop just steps in. The cop just tries to get a word in by saying that what she was doing was unreasonable, causing a disturbance, and it's best to just calm down. Karen just stopped in shock, realizing that the cop was not on her side. What the heck is wrong with you? I'm a victim here. I paid good money and I wasn't serviced. They should be the ones arrested. Then she started to go from shock back to anger. She said this next part while jabbing her finger in the officer's chest. You need to do, jab, your freaking job, jab. And the officer then grabbed her arm and just did a full takedown. Karen was face first into the floor screaming. The officer was reading the Miranda rights. You're under arrest for assaulting a police officer, disorderly conduct, etc. Another cop came into the store when he heard the yelling to help out. I did ask if they need me to make a statement or something, but they said they have enough. I just left and I didn't follow up. Okay, comments down below, guys. I wanted to do this story last because I don't think it's real, but I'm interested. As I do this sometimes. You would know this if you've been around for a while on the channel. Sometimes I read stories out which I'm just not sure if they're real or not, because it kind of leads into the whole topic of Reddit and these sort of posts in general. I would like to believe that the vast majority of things I read are real and did actually happen. Maybe they're slightly embellished sometimes, sure, but on the whole, they're pretty real. But then I read something like this, I'm just like, I just do not think this is real at all. And it does make me think, is everything I read actually fake or not? So firstly, get in the comments down below, do you think what I've just read is real? Did it actually happen? Secondly, what do you think about Reddit as a whole and the other 2 stories in this episode, for example? Do you think they're real, completely, 100%, maybe slightly embellished, or just made up like this one probably is? Entitled woman thinks she owns the drive-thru, throws a tantrum, and gets served by karma and the police. I'm at Chick-fil-A the other day. At this location, they have 2 drive-thru lanes. One for regular orders and one for mobile orders, where you skip the line if you use the app and scan a QR code. I always use the mobile lane because it's way faster. Well, not today. Enter the entitled woman of this story. She cuts me off pulling into the lot, red flag number 1. But whatever. There's no one else in the mobile lane, so it's not a huge deal. I pull in behind her and immediately notice she's not holding a phone to scan a QR code like a normal person. Nope, she's sitting there waving at the attendants. Newsflash, nobody monitors the mobile lane. So naturally, she starts laying on the horn like a lunatic. An employee finally comes over. Before he's even at her car, she starts barking out her order. And this is not a short one. This woman orders like she's feeding an army. After ordering, she drives off without paying. The guy literally has to chase her down to get her payment. Then she pulls up to the window where I'm still stuck right behind her, despite having scanned my code and being ready to grab my food in seconds. The employee at the window asks her to pull around to one of the waiting spots, but she refuses, saying, "No, it always takes longer if I pull around." The employee explains very patiently that pulling around won't delay her order, but it will let them serve the people behind her whose food is ready. But she responds, "It's not really fair to prepare their orders before mine when I was here first." The employee tries to explain how food stations work, but she interrupts, saying, "They should all be working on the first person's order. I know you just make minimum wage, but this really shouldn't be that hard to understand." After what feels like forever, the manager appears at the window. He leans out and very politely asks her to pull around, even promising to personally bring her food out as soon as it's ready. To top it off, he offers her a complimentary peppermint shake as an apology for the inconvenience. And this is what, guys, sorry to interrupt, this is what I hate about customer service. The fact that you have to sort of pander and make sure that customers like this are alright and still come back the next time. You should just be able to say, "No, F off, get out. I hate people like you. You're ruining my job. Why are you saying I'm on minimum wage? Why does that matter? Like, just go away." But no, it's in the interest of the manager, I suppose, to give her free stuff and, yeah, make her keep coming back. I just think it's a disgrace. Anyway, what does this Karen do? She knocks the shake out of his hand. It goes flying everywhere. On him, inside the window, total chaos. She even has the nerve to beep her horn at him. And this is why I feel like, people in customer service shouldn't try and help people like this out. Just say, "No, go away." Anyway, finally, calm starts to take hold. A couple of minutes later, 2 police officers walk around the front of the drive-thru road, coming towards her. The entitled woman laughs at the manager, saying, "You really called the police?" The manager calmly responds, "No, ma'am, they were at the counter when I walked by, covered in the shake you knocked over. They also heard your shouting and honking. I told them it was fine, but they wanted to check on the situation." At this point, the officers reached her car and told her if she doesn't pull forward and talk to them, they'll arrest her for assault and move the car themselves. She finally pulls around, but doesn't stop. She just speeds out of the parking lot. The police laughed. She has a very easy to remember vanity plate, and they told the manager that they're adding obstruction of justice for failing to comply with a lawful order when they track her down. Now look, I know that not all posts here have happy endings, so I figured I'd share this one for the holiday season. Well, OP, thank you. Now there are a couple of edits that OP has added here. Firstly, they say, some people were confused about her not paying at first. What happened was she finished barking out her order and then just started to drive to the window. At this Chick-fil-A, you pay right with the person who takes your order, not at the window. Hopefully that makes it clearer. And the second edit, a lot of people are asking for an update, and I really wish I had one, but I don't even know what ended up happening myself. I was just another customer. I've tried looking up her vanity plate. Apparently I'm not allowed to share it here, but I haven't found anything related to it. If I do hear anything in the local news or get a flag for the vanity plate on Google Alerts, I'll definitely update. Thank you, everyone. And finally, here is the third update, which is interesting and includes, I've read a few comments about how the mobile drive-thru isn't different from the regular one, or how some people don't believe the shake could have gotten all over the manager. I used the word window when I probably should have said door. It's a hybrid window/door setup here. Anyway, I was there again today, so I took a couple of pictures of how it looks. This shows the mobile versus regular drive-thru, and it should be clear how somebody could knock a shake all over the manager from how they hand it out, which is just like how they're doing in these pictures. Now, I will explain these pictures to you if you're listening on podcast form or on audio platforms. But pretty simply, rather than in a normal drive-thru where there is a window and the employee will pass your food through the window into your car, in this mobile lane, the employee gets out the door, like walks out the door. So they are physically standing next to the car. A couple of images here which show that, yeah, the employees are very close to you, like they're just standing outside your car door pretty much. So yes, if you did knock over a milkshake, as you can see in the woman in the second photo, she's carrying a drink, it would be very easy to knock that and just, yeah, splash it all over her. So crazy scenes, but I suppose that is what happened here. Okay, and there we go. Maybe that is one of the reasons why we have windows at drive-thrus rather than doors, for reasons like this. I mean, maybe not. I mean, this shouldn't happen. It's absolutely ridiculous. But again, like, comment down below, guys. What do you think about what I said in terms of like these sort of fast food chains or just customer service in general, always saying that the customer's always right? There has to be a point where you just say, you know what? I don't care if we lose this customer's business for the rest of eternity, the rest of their life. It's not worth it. And I feel like we reached that stage before the manager got involved and was giving a free milkshake, right? I don't know. Maybe it's like, it's good to give people the benefit of the doubt. But if this woman was doing all that crazy stuff before the manager got involved, at that point, just say, look, move along. We don't want your business here. Pretty much never want to see you again, but that's fine, as we don't want to deal with you. Now moving on to our next Entitled People story. Begpacker wanted to eat my lunch. Now, if you've never heard the term begpacker before, like me, apparently this is the definition. It's a traveller who asks the public for money to fund their travels. Often Westerners who decide to go to countries where the cost of living is low, but then ask the public for money to fund it. I mean, that is crazy. They beg for charity from locals, apparently, despite coming from the West to countries where the cost of living is much lower. That's mental. Anyway, let's get into the story. On Saturday, I, a 38-year-old woman, went out to meet my friend Jerry, who is a 38-year-old woman as well, in this small village where a lot of pseudo-hippies and pseudo-spiritual people hang out. Another friend, Brew, who is a 41-year-old woman, joined, and we were strolling around when Jerry bumped into a woman she knows. This woman, Lola, was obnoxious from the beginning and started following us around. I noticed Jerry was a bit annoyed by this, but she let it go. Lola stops and buys a big plate of food, potatoes, rice, etc. She starts eating with her hands and doesn't offer me any. I didn't think much of this as I didn't want it, but this is important for later. We finally sit at a bar/restaurant at around 2 p.m. Me and Jerry order a beer. Brew orders a tea. Lola doesn't order anything. Now, I'm mostly quiet, listening to the conversation. Lola asks Brew how she survives, how she makes money. Brew is a bit taken aback, but responds and asks, "What about you?" To which Lola says, "Well, I have no money at the moment. That's why I'm asking." Brew wasn't feeling well and went home. Lola asked the waitress for hot water, fills Brew's empty teacup with it, and starts drinking from it. Wait, sorry, wow, that's interesting. I just observed. Jerry and Lola are talking, but I already didn't like Lola much. Later I learned that she is one of these white European people who travel the world by asking for other people's charity. Mind you, I'm in a poor country, and this is the type of person who asks for a discount in a local farmer's market. The topic of their conversation was incredibly annoying to hear. Basically, she had a bunch of judgmental ideas around one-night stands, and Jerry was trying to tell her this was just a constructed belief. I did not participate. By then, it was 3 p.m. and I hadn't had lunch, just a small breakfast. I ordered a portion of fries, the only vegan food in the place. It arrives and I eat it all without offering any. Jerry casually mentions that I'm a Buddhist, and Lola then says that she is surprised by this fact, as I didn't share my fries, and that I am selfish. She said she was also a Buddhist and Buddhists share. I just laughed, and I asked her whether she offered me any of her food before. She stays quiet. Then I said she can order her own fries if she wants fries. My view is this. I'm a Buddhist, but not the Buddha. Fries can look like a snack for the table, but in this case it was my main, my lunch. She just eaten a huge plate of food. I don't feel I have to share my food with anyone else, and I don't see how anyone is entitled to my food. Also, being judgmental and confrontational are both not very Buddhist practices, but I'm sure she was not enlightened, so I don't hold anyone to the Buddhist standards. However, I can admit that I didn't offer any chips on purpose, and that I do judge begpackers. Well, that is the first I've ever heard of a begpacker, but goodness me, I don't really want to hear about them again. They sound like terrible people. Absolutely crazy. Not gonna lie, got no idea where this story takes place, but every time that I've gone to Asia or, you know, somewhere just like in the Far East in general, which is where, you know, generally most people backpack from the Western world, or they go to South America, which is relatively similar, right? It's much cheaper than Western Europe or America, like considerably cheaper. I mean, it depends where you go, of course, but if you're getting sort of normal standard food at normal standard places, it's a lot cheaper, to the extent that I've always been surprised and been like, oh wow, this is great. You know, I'm not spending much money at all to get great quality stuff. It's way cheaper than when I'm here in the UK. So for someone to be doing this, or for begpackers to exist, is mental. I actually looked up like when this term first started, and there are a couple of articles about it from a few years ago. But yeah, it's there's not too much about it. I don't know. It's a terrible sort of thing that I just didn't really know existed. There's a couple of articles, and the titles say, "Is begpacking the worst travel trend of all time?" And there's an article from The Guardian, which funnily has the title, "Young, Entitled and Over There, The Rise of the Begpacker." Couldn't say it better myself. Great story. Now for our final entitled people story. A man wanted me to reimburse him because his girlfriend learned he cheated on her with me. Right, a little bit of information about me. Firstly, I live in Paris, France, where health-related expenses are usually pretty reasonable. And secondly, I'm sexually promiscuous, which means I do regular STI testing. I've mostly been lucky, except once where I got a mycosis in my throat. It was gone after only one day of medicine, according to the test I did a few weeks later. Of course, I immediately contacted all of the partners I had sex with since my last check-in, 3 months earlier, at least the ones who had not deleted their Grindr account, blocked me, or just whose contact I didn't get. Most of them thanked me for warning them and told me they'll get checked. Great. Except for one guy. He told me he doesn't use condoms with his girlfriend and asked me how is he supposed to tell her? She doesn't know that he cheats on her, nor that he has sex with men. Honestly, I don't consider this my problem. He also tells me that he's not legally in France and doesn't have social security, so he asked me to pay for the testing. It's around €10. Honestly, if that means it doesn't spread to other people, I'm willing to pay that price. I should note at this point that I'd forgotten that there are free STI tests all around Paris. I used to go there as a student, but my insurance covers private labs, and that means that instead of waiting for hours to see a nurse, I wait 20 minutes. The guy contacted me a few days later, letting me know his test turned out positive. He asked for money for the doctor and medicine. Once again, the amount is low enough that I can easily afford it, so I give him the cash to pay those things. Probably less than €40 for the doctors and medicine. The guy then tells me that he was living at his girlfriend's place, but she's kicked him out. And so he told me that I had to pay for his hotel. I told him I wouldn't, but he insisted, and that is when I blocked him. To be frank, I'm kind of sad for him. In the first place, because I hate the fact that people have to live with the notion that the police could force them out of the country, not find a legal job, and depend entirely on their partners. Still, I don't think that part of the implicit contract between men who have quick hookups with other men goes beyond the fact that we tell each other if we ever got an STI, or warn them if they forget some things when leaving our apartment. Once, a guy forgot a ring. I immediately went to send him a message, just to realise that he'd already blocked me on Grindr. This day, I guess I got a free ring. In particular, I don't think that a quick hookup means I'm responsible for paying for his hotel. Now, while mentioning this story to a friend of mine, they noted that, firstly, if he never got tested before, it's quite possible that he was the one who gave me the STI, especially since it seems he was surprised that you could get STIs from oral sex. More importantly though, for what we know, he never got the STI, or he uses it to get money out of other people. I've not asked for his medical bill or test results. There's actually no way of me knowing if he actually got the STI. Well, there we go. One of the top comments here says, "If you give a mouse a cookie, he'll ask for a glass of milk." Very valid. And I didn't even think about that last point either. Like, there is a decent chance that this person didn't have the STI, but is just obviously trying to get as much money out of you as possible. Now, I will say that I think what you did was very fair and reasonable, given the fact that you thought there was a chance that you might have given this guy the STI. So, paying for his test, paying for the follow-up, it's very nice of you. Paying for his hotel, though, because he cheated on his girlfriend with you, that's probably a step too far. It's very, very funny, though. The audacity to ask for that is just great. I also do agree with you, the fact that, yeah, you can't work legally, depend entirely on the partner, etc., and could get kicked out of the country at any moment. But then again, it's also sad that this guy is cheating on his girlfriend. So, karma is all I'm going to say. My ex is so entitled. She thinks I should be paying bills for her and the guy she cheated with. I found out my girlfriend of 11 years was cheating on me with an unemployed dude, of all people. I'm not rich, but I provided her a good lifestyle. I paid most of her bills. I provided a nice place, nails and hair done regularly, dates every weekend, couple vacations a year. She got used to that lifestyle and wanted to keep living it, despite cheating with a broke dude. She didn't admit to the cheating, I caught on to it. Now, once it was clear I was done with her, the entitlement really started to show. She said because I had family in the area and she didn't, I should move out, but continue paying the bills to give her and the new guy a chance to get on their feet. She also insisted on keeping my dogs. She told me I could only see my own dogs if I asked the new guy. But since they didn't have any money, I needed to continue paying for food and vet bills. Instead, I kicked her out and kept my dogs. At that point, she was angry and still felt entitled to my income. After I kicked her out of my place, she claimed she was forced to quit her job because I forced her to relocate. And then she tried to sue me for lost wages, which didn't work out in her favor. Now, you'd think she'd stop at this point, but she didn't. She contacted my work and threatened to sue them, stating, "Your employees' actions cost me everything," and tried to insist they settle outside of court with her for $100,000. She didn't make that much money. Instead, my work filed harassment charges against her. You'd think she'd stop at that point, but she didn't. She started messaging every family member of mine that she could find, told them I cost her everything out of spite just because she moved on with someone else, and that the least they could do is send her money to help her get a place and pay rent. When that didn't work, she went online and begged for people to send money to her Cash App to help her with a place to live, and she claimed it was a domestic violence situation. I don't understand how she doesn't understand that any financial support I gave her would obviously end if she cheated on me. We weren't married, we don't have kids, I've supported her for years, I owe her nothing. I really don't owe it to her to help her and her new relationship get on their feet and establish themselves, which seems to come as a shock to her. When I read a story like this, guys, I genuinely do think, like, is this entitlement or is it just being completely unhinged and just downright dumb? I just don't understand how you can possibly think that cheating on your partner and then trying to like take all their stuff and then saying, yeah, please continue to fund my life with the person I cheated on you with, is like, how can anyone think that and actually mean it? I mean, look, it's an ideal situation. Don't get me wrong. If you can get away with it, if you can cheat on your partner and then they continue to pay for your life, wow, you're doing well. But no, in all seriousness, what is going on? I mean, the comments here are saying to actually keep records and recordings of everything because of the domestic violence claim. That is true. People are saying it was a fun and amusing story until that moment, which is a great point. You actually need to sue her for slander or defamation, people are saying, because yeah, if that starts to snowball and she starts to do more stuff like that and she, you know, makes those abuse allegations real and does go to the law, then you could be in a little bit of trouble, and it's stress that you don't want. So try and shut that down as quickly as you can. He tried to take my airline seat and lost. I was traveling to Las Vegas to meet up with some friends and I pre-booked my seats. With this airline, they charge extra for certain seats. I chose a window seat with extra legroom due to my disability, which cost me an additional $45. When boarding, there was a man in my seat with another in the aisle seat. The middle was open. I checked my seat number and then politely told the man that he was in my seat, and I asked for him to move. Now, I'm a petite female and both men were about 6 feet tall and over 200 pounds. When both opened their mouths, it definitely appeared like they both were used to using their size to get their way. The man in the aisle immediately told me that the man at the window didn't have to move and I could sit in the middle. After all, he said, I shouldn't make a scene about it. Now that really peed me off. I didn't raise my voice and I was very polite. I said I wasn't going to make a scene, but I was asking nicely for the seat I paid for. That is when he stood up and attempted to physically intimidate me. But here's the thing, I worked in frontline healthcare. I'm used to men attempting to use their size and mouth to intimidate, and this behavior doesn't work with me. So I decided to use another tactic. I turned my head to the man in my seat and I told him that I would make him a deal. He gives me $50 cash and I'll give him my seat. I told him I paid an additional $45 for the seat, and with tax, it should be around $50. He gives the money and the seat would be his. This is when he turned to me in shock and said, "You want me to pay you $50 for your seat?" I answered, "So you're admitting that you knew this wasn't your seat. I'm going to call the airline staff and they can take you to your seat. After all, I booked this seat due to me having a disability," which is true, "and you're trying to steal it." I've got a butt in here at this point, guys, sorry. Even if you don't have a disability, if you book a set seat. That is your seat. It doesn't even matter if you've paid any more money for it. It's of course therefore up to you what you want to do with it, if you want to give it away or not, but you have the right to that seat. And I will say that throughout my entire time going on planes, I've never had something like this occur. Mostly people are pretty polite and, well, just normal and do sit in the seat that they've been assigned, but goodness me, some people are so entitled. Anyway, let's get back to the story. Everyone around us turned to look at him and they didn't have kind looks on their faces. He turned 14 shades of red and moved to the middle seats. He pulled his hoodie over his head and sulked for the rest of the flight. His friend did the same. The moral of this story is simple. Do not use size and gender to bully others. It may just backfire on you and make your next flight a lot less comfortable. Yeah, as I said, I've never had this situation actually happen to me. And I know I've read a lot of stories about this sort of airline stuff at this point. I've nearly done this for 6 years. So there have been quite a few similar stories, but yeah, let me know in the comments down below if you have an airline story, because I don't, and you know, I'm not a frequent flyer, but I've been on a fair share of flights and I've never seen this happen. So I'd love to know. Maybe this is just a thing that happens on like internal flights in America or something, which I don't go on. But yeah, let me know in the comments, have you ever seen this happen and how have you reacted? Entitled thief gets angry because he can't steal. This happened yesterday. I was at the car wash. It's one of those that you drive through and then park to clean and vacuum, with a couple of vacuum hoses on each side of every parking spot. Yesterday, they were fairly slow when I arrived. There were only 4 cars in the lot, including my van, out of 22 spots in the lot. I actually counted before I left. Like the other cars in the lot, I chose a spot away from everyone else so I could have both sides empty. Now, I'm male, but I carry a bag instead of using pockets. Think small messenger bag. I had my bag sitting in the passenger seat of my van when I opened both of the front doors and both of the sliding doors. This particular car wash supplies loaner towels for drying and cleaning, with buckets for used and dirty towels. Now, I just returned with a couple of towels when a guy pulls up immediately next to my van. That was annoying, since there were a lot of choices of other places to park, but whatever. Then I realised that my bag was easily visible from the property entrance and from the wash tunnel exit. So I went to the passenger side of my van to dry, clean and vacuum that side. I then closed the sliding door and locked it, followed by locking and closing my passenger front door. About 30 seconds after I went back to the driver's side to work on that side, I heard someone pulling on my door handles. I immediately looked up and, unsurprisingly, it was the jerk that parked next to me. So I yelled over to him, "Yeah, I already locked the doors." He gets so angry that I can see him turning red and he yells back at me, "F you, jerk." Then he punched my van, which hurt his hand more than my door, jumps back into his car and tears out of the parking lot as fast as his little beater can go. I laughed and flipped him off as he drove away. When I went to look at the other side, I had no idea where he hit my van. There was no mark or dent of any kind. So I finished cleaning and I went to the store. I'm glad I locked my doors. You know what's actually really impressive about this is the fact that you clocked on to there potentially being a little bit of danger, like very, very early. I would have thought maybe in that situation, yeah, you would question like why is someone coming up, pulling up right next to you, but you might just think they're being annoying or just unaware, but no, you clocked it very, very early. What's crazy is rather than running away and fleeing as you'd expect a thief to do when caught, this guy actually just started swearing at you and saying, "F you, jerk, why aren't you letting me steal your bag?" And then punching your van. It's like he didn't even care about running away or getting away. He was like, "Damn it, I really wanted that bag. I really like the look of it." Very, very strange once again, but you handled that very, very well, OP. My neighbor doesn't buy her kids any snacks or drinks. We bought our house we were in 8 years ago. 2 months ago, my husband passed away from cancer. Don't worry, we are financially secure. But when we moved in, we started meeting the neighbors after we were settled in. There was one little girl who was about 4. As she got to know us, she started spending a lot of time with us. We took her on vacations, dinners, shopping and parks, etc. This little girl, Fran, even spent the night with us. I spoiled her and got her many treats and clothing and gifts. We then met her older sister, who was 10ish, who started asking for the same things. So I kept giving them sodas, snacks and food, etc. She soon started bringing her other friends over. I finally decided to put a stop to her and her friend, who was 11, and I told them that I'm cutting this gravy train off because I have to go shopping more often than I want. It was getting old, and I even complained to the parents of them about the older kids, hoping they'd stop their kids, but of course they didn't. So, 3 years ago, the older sister, Rachel, asked me what I am buying her for Christmas this year. I told her that's not happening anymore. The same night, she tried to set our house on fire. I was going to call the cops, but the mother said it would be too extreme and she'll deal with her and she won't be allowed to go anywhere for 2 months and she'll take away her phone, etc. I saw her going somewhere the same day and the days following. 5 days after I talked to her mum about it, Rachel sent me a text asking for $15. No apologies, nothing, just straight up. Have you got $15? I forwarded that text to her mum and nope, nothing. So I stopped acknowledging her when I saw her anywhere. I just ignored her. She started tossing things though in our swimming pool. My husband told them that he was done with their child and he put more security cameras around our house. She has major anger issues. She tried to get her guy friends to take out the cameras. And of course, we saw that and called the cops and showed them the proof. They talked to the boys, who said that Rachel had offered to let them feel her up if they damaged our cameras. Oh my goodness. My husband said if they ever come close to our home or vehicles, they'll be carried away in a body bag, which scared them. Sorry, why would you ever admit that someone had offered to let you feel them up? I mean, offering to let someone feel you up anyway is extremely weird, but then admitting that as well? Okay, this is all very, very strange. The family rented their house out and moved far away. But 6 months ago, they moved back into their house. I still ignore the free moocher. She kept sending Fran over to ask for so many things, which mostly include food, but wasn't limited to it, so she knows that I won't budge. Plus now, she is 17 and Fran is 12. The mother kicked the older monster out because she couldn't handle her. She steals from everyone and anyone. Stores, parents, friends, and neighbours. I blame the mother for not disciplining her when she should have. Now Fran has started following in the footsteps of her older sister as far as wanting snacks and drinks. She asked for bottled water many times. One day I told her that she should drink tap water, and she said she hates the tap water, and she started trying to bring a friend around. I saw the friend, Lauren, one day outside looking very hot. She lives several streets away, so I gave her a bottle of Sunny D. She left, and within 5 minutes, Fran was at my door, ringing the doorbell frantically and trying to open the door. I was watching from the cameras while I was handling some insurance claims for my husband's passing. I was emotional, and I ignored her. They left, but as I'm watching, she took her much younger friend's juice and she poured it all out. I guess she was thinking that if I can't get any, then she shouldn't either. Now, Fran is a very nice and thoughtful girl, but since she knows that I like her, she can just ask for anything she wants. Again, it's gotten old. 2 days later, they both came to my door in the guise of checking on me, but when I didn't offer them anything to drink, Fran started talking rather loudly, and she said, "I want Dr. Pepper," while her friend just as loudly said, "Me too." I told Fran that both your parents work, asked them to buy some for you. She looked shocked and said, "But I thought you loved me." I said that doesn't mean I'm going to give you things anytime you want. The younger friend had seen my DoorDash delivery once and we'd gotten KFC, and she told Fran that we had KFC and they came to ask us for some. I told her we got 2 bowls and my daughter and I shared and my son had one, and there was no chicken left. Now the mother is very aware of these demands that her kids make from the other neighbours. She's been separated from her husband for many years. She can buy high-end designer handbags, but other than giving her kids food, she won't buy them anything extra. I am grieving, and these people are now asking me for firewood to keep their house warm. It's not my job to do that. Their home uses oil for heat, and it's probably about the same price to fill it up as a Gucci handbag costs. I have central heating, but I also love the fireplace in the cold days. She doesn't prioritize. I don't know what to do because after telling them so many times that we aren't rich enough to feed our neighbours, I don't know. I don't want to sell my house, but they're freeloaders. The mum asked me to sell her our older van on a payment plan, but I refused to sell it. I'm emotionally attached to it because that was my husband's commuter van. It's only 2 months since he's been gone. I am not ready to part with any of his things for now. Any advice? Thank you in advance. Well, my advice to the UOP would be stop answering the door, block all their numbers. Maybe, if anything, you could actually just call CPS for a wellness check because I don't know what's going on in that house, but clearly something is not, in the wise words of Gary Neville, something's not right. Maybe that'd be enough actually at that point if you did that to actually get the mum to tell the kids to back off. Because I agree with you, right? You don't just turn from a nice normal girl into this monster without some poor parenting. And it's very, very likely that the mum is just not doing enough here. Let's be honest. But yeah, I mean, as far as what you can do with the kids themselves when they come round, I don't know. I would just say, like, on the one hand, it's obvious you want to be really nice to them still, and they should, in theory, be very grateful for what you've done for them in the past, but clearly they're not. I think at this point, you just have to say to them, look, I'm sorry, but you are no longer welcome on my property, and then give them nothing, which is tough because you spent years giving them stuff which their mum hasn't given them. But it's got to the point where you have to put your foot down, in my opinion. But guys, let me know what you think in the comments down below. How my entitled late aunt lost everything. Buckle up, because this story is an absolute doozy that spans nearly 4 years. Some backstory that's relevant to the story. In December of 2020, my father agreed to put his mother into a nursing home to protect his sister, my aunt, from an elder abuse investigation and getting my grandmother moved into state care. Because of my aunt's negligence, my grandmother had been hospitalized 3 times in 2 months. Once for a severe UTI, another time for an infected wound because my aunt secured my grandmother's diaper with duct tape, and the final time because of second-degree burns after my aunt left a heating pad on my grandmother's back overnight. Ironically, in October 2021, my aunt would end up in a nursing home after she burned herself with a heating pad, then didn't get medical treatment until the burn was badly infected. In January 2022, my grandmother passed away at the age of 94 years old. In my grandparents' will, they split their estate between their 2 children 50-50. However, because neither my father nor aunts was on the deed to my grandparents' house, it was signed over to a probate lawyer who would be tasked with selling it. When my father started going through his mother's affairs in February 2022, he discovered that the state was on the verge of taking the house because the only bills my aunt bothered paying were the electric and cable bills, and she hadn't paid property taxes since December 2020. My father also discovered that there were 2 massive liens on the house, totaling almost $200,000. One from the nursing home my grandmother had been in because my aunt hadn't paid them either. The other because my aunt convinced my grandmother to take home equity loan out on the house so that she could buy a car. Initially, she was only supposed to take what she needed for the car, roughly $6,000. However, my aunt went behind my grandmother's back and would end up taking the full $100,000 the bank offered them. My aunt had been able to co-sign for the loan, so she was authorized to take the full amounts. She also never made any of the monthly payments on that loan because she legitimately thought loans were money banks, just giving people free, no strings attached cash. My aunt never told anyone what she did with the remaining $94,000, but the rest of the family suspects that she gambled it away at local casinos. My aunt was also given full access to my grandmother's bank account, which she'd almost completely drained before my grandmother passed, meaning my father had to pay any outstanding bills from his own pocket, though he was eventually reimbursed by the lawyer. Goodness me, just 2 paragraphs in and already, what a woman your aunt is. Some point between late January 2022 and March 2022, in an attempt to buy herself some time to recover enough to leave the nursing home and thinking that the house couldn't be sold if somebody was living in it, my aunt convinced one of her friends to move into my grandmother's vacant house, unbeknownst to my father and the lawyer. As you can imagine, things got messy when my father found out. Initially, my aunt told my father that the man was there to take care of her 2 cats. However, even after my aunt was court-ordered to sign her 2 cats over to my father due to neglect and abuse, the man refused to leave. Both cats have been treated and rehomed and are doing well. Well, that is good to hear. We eventually found out that man had broken his lease, moved out of his apartment, and had nowhere else to go except his and my aunt's daughter's house, and who adamantly refused to let her father move in with her. Around April, my parents started to deep clean the disgustingly dirty house with the man still living there, and he did everything in his power to obstruct my parents' efforts. He'd call up claiming he was sick with COVID, which my parents almost always called his bluff on since he was physically disabled and never left the house, nor had anyone but my parents visit. One day, he told my mother, well, Sharon, who is my entitled aunt, said we'd be able to live here forever, and that my father didn't have the balls to kick me out. Well, my mum told my father what had been said, and the very next day, my father gave the man an ultimatum. My father told him, "Either you leave on your own by May 1st, or I'll have you evicted." The man chose the eviction route because my aunt told him they can't legally evict a disabled person, and he believed her. He ended up having to move in with his daughter, who is no longer speaking to my aunt because my aunt has ruined that woman's livelihood on multiple occasions. But that's a whole other story. However, before he left the house, per my aunt's orders, he stole several valuable pieces of jewellery, including a box of rings that had been willed to her cousins. We were able to get the stolen jewellery back in late 2023 after the probate lawyer had to send police to retrieve it, which is another doozy of a story. I feel like, despite the fact that this story is fantastic, there's so much more to uncover in this story. Like, there's so many different intricacies and events that I would love to delve into at a later point. But for now, goodness me. Because of the whole squatter incident, we missed a massive housing boom where houses were selling for significantly more than what they were worth. And the house was put on the market during a slump and ended up selling for almost $150,000 less than what it was worth. And it led to another lengthy legal battle with my aunt because she refused to sell or throw out any of her furniture in an attempt to buy enough time to leave the nursing home until she was court ordered to do so. Given what the house sold for, and deducting the lien from the home equity loan, the lien the nursing home put on the house had actually been dismissed by a judge, the end figure that my father ended up with was just under $60,000, while my aunt ended up with just under $50,000. My aunt got less because the probate lawyer charged her more than he charged my father because she was the one who had drawn things out for so long. Around that time, my aunt had been deemed unfit to make decisions for herself by a judge and several of her doctors, and ended up signing her half of the inheritance to my father to avoid losing it to the nursing home that she was in. My aunt passed away on August 1st at the age of 68 from multi-organ failure caused by years of heavy smoking, ignoring her diabetes, and refusing to consent to a surgery that would have likely saved her life. We didn't have a funeral for her. We simply had her cremated, and her ashes, along with pictures and other personal belongings, were given to our older daughter. My aunt's younger daughter tried to sue my father for the rest of her mother's inheritance, but the suit was quickly dropped since the money my aunt had inherited after her mother's death had already been signed over to my dad. So my aunt's daughter had no right to it. Our one saving grace in this whole fiasco was that my aunt was in a nursing home for the entire process. Otherwise, it would have been significantly messier. There's a lot I didn't go into for the sake of not typing out an almost literal novel, but I'll gladly elaborate on anything I can. Thanks for reading. Okay, goodness me, what a story. I can't quite believe that someone like that exists in your life, OP. But all I can really say is fair play to your dad for actually sticking with this and going through it, using so much of his own money and eventually ending up with really not that much for all his trials and tribulations. Although I am slightly surprised that there was any inheritance left after all of this. But wow, I mean, earlier this year, my granddad died, my dad's dad. And my dad and his brother, my uncle, have been working pretty hard to make sure that, you know, all the money goes to my granny correctly and goes through probate, etc., etc. And yeah, like going through different bank accounts and seeing what's owed and yeah, making sure everything's all right. I've never had any experience of that myself, but while reading this story, all I could think was, if one of them was against the other one and like was trying to put money into different places or was trying to take money, my granny's still around, so like the money was always going to go to her. But I mean, like, say she wasn't and the two of them were against each other, how would you ever come to some sort of conclusion or agreement? I mean, like, imagine if this woman was involved, this horrible aunt of yours, OP. I can't imagine that the stress and the workload that would have to go on top of what already seemed to be, from my perspective anyway, a lot of work. But yeah, I guess this is not a one-off thing. People argue over inheritance all the time. Maybe not to this extent though. And also, I would say, actually, can you consider writing that novel, OP? Thank you for submitting it. Great story. But as I said halfway through that, I feel like there's so much more to unpack here, so many more events. I would read a short story based on your life and in particular, your aunt's. All right, now moving on to our next story submitted by one of you guys. Just let the kids sort it out themselves. Okay then. Backstory. I live in a town in the Netherlands with a university, and a few years ago, my girlfriend's cousin got accepted as an overseas student. My girlfriend is Japanese. Her family, father, mother, her sister, and herself moved to the Netherlands while she was younger. Her cousin still lived in Japan when she applied, got accepted, and is now living in a student room in the Netherlands. We don't really have dorms here, like in the US, but the building she lives in is maintained by the university itself. Said cousin is doing quite well for herself, got good grades, and is well on her way to get her diploma. Partly because of this, the overseas family decided to have their vacation in the Netherlands this year, both for leisure and a bit of a family gathering. This story takes place during that family gathering. My girlfriend's parents and the cousin's parents, plus yet another family, had a meeting in a restaurant in my hometown. They had 2 little kids in tow, sisters. They looked like 8 or 9 or so to me, but my girlfriend later told me they're actually 11 and 12, but did look younger than they were, probably also because of their school uniform. At least that's what it looked like to me. I really don't know. Anyway, the idea was to catch up with the family, and my girlfriend was asked if she would be willing to keep the 2 young kids busy for a few hours since she was the oldest of the lot. My girlfriend and me are in our 40s. Her studying cousin is around 25, and as said, the 2 kids are 11 and 12. Now my girlfriend didn't mind, but did ask me if I wanted to come along as well. Her cousin didn't mind. The 3 of us had met a few times before already, and well, it was all about keeping the young kids busy anyway. Oh, for the record, the 2 young kids basically only speak Japanese. They do understand bits of English and can even speak some, but it's mostly Japanese. My girlfriend's cousin speaks both Japanese and English and has even learned quite a bit of the Dutch language as well. Seriously, for the few years she's been here, it's in my opinion quite impressive. My girlfriend speaks Japanese, English and Dutch, and as for me, Dutch, obviously, and English. But over the years, I've also managed to pick up a decent bit of Japanese as well, and I can often, not always, understand the general gist of things, as long as it's not too quickly spoken or too complicated. So basically, it was all English and Japanese between us. Right then, let's get into the story now. A bully shows up. We took the kids for a walk through my hometown, and they were quite interested. But when we went past a playground, that also quickly got their attention. So the 3 of us decided to go and sit on a bench and let the kids have some fun. There were several activities, like an air balloon castle, swings, a sandbox for younger kids to play in, just plenty of things to do. The 2 wanted to go into the castle, which was fine with my girlfriend, as long as they made sure to only use the entrance and exit, which was located on our side, so they wouldn't get lost and we could keep track of them. The 3 of us talked quite a bit, but also kept eyes on the castle. So, around 15 or so minutes later, I spot the 2 again by accident near the exit with a little kid in between them. I have no idea, but I'd say she was around 8 or so. I can't really tell exactly what's going on, but I did see the kid point to the area of the sandbox, and that's where the 3 of them headed next. Before I can say anything to my girlfriend, a young lady walks up to us and asks, in Dutch, if we have seen a little girl passing by. This seems way too coincidental to me, so I ask, is she wearing a pink dress by any chance? The woman's face lights up as I tell her that she seems to be with my girlfriend's younger cousins, and I point to the sandbox. But when we look over, we now also see an older boy near the girls. I'm not good with guessing ages. Let's just say that he was bigger than them, and he's clearly harassing them. The small girl is visibly crying, but is also comforted by one of the 2 younger cousins, while the other is keeping the boy away from her. We all walk over to the sandbox just when the boy manages to shove one of the cousins out of his way, and he's clearly trying to bully the young girl in the pink dress, but is now stopped by the other cousin, which is when we arrive. The woman who is with us berates the boy and tells him to stop picking on young children, but the little brat clearly isn't very impressed. The incident. The next moment, his mother, so I assume, storms over yelling, and she has every appearance of a Karen. Or a Toki, as we tend to call them over here. A little argument ensues, mainly between the mother of the girl in the pink dress and our Karen, or Toki. It goes back and forth, but it's apparent that according to his mother, the brat did nothing wrong by picking on a girl half his own size, and this fine example of a mother even has the audacity to blame the other mother for raising such a weak little C-word. Basically, and then if you are Dutch, have a look on screen right now if you're watching on YouTube, that's what was said. And then the Karen says, kids will be kids, just let them sort out their own problems already. But she does take the boy with her as she walks away. The mother gets ready to grab her kid and leave, but in the meantime, the girl has completely calmed down and is actually having a great time with the 2 cousins. Unknown to anyone else yet at this time, my girlfriend decides to comply with the earlier suggestion. First, she asked the mother to reconsider leaving because the kids are having so much fun together. My girlfriend also comments how amazing kids are because they clearly don't speak the same language, yet they seem to understand each other just fine and are having a good time. The mother agrees, and my girlfriend now addresses both her cousins in Japanese, and it sounded very serious to me. Something about the tone, the way she talked, and also looked at both girls, even a bit sternly. They both nodded and clearly said, "Hi," aka "Yes, mom, apologies for the pronunciation there." I think I even saw a small head bow, but I'm not too sure. Our little group goes to sit on a bench nearby, and for the next 5 minutes, nothing happens. We're just having some small talk. Then the bully returns. The mother of the small girl wanted to stand up, but gets stopped by my girlfriend, who tells her that she has nothing to worry about because her kid is completely safe. Just watch. Trust me on this. The mother is visibly uneasy, but does remain seated, which is when I noticed that the behaviour and stance of the two cousins has completely changed. They seem much more confident and relaxed. The boy starts making a fuss, while one of the cousins stands up, points to him, and yells something at him, in Japanese, obviously. He once again tries to shove her out of his way, but this time she's faster. She steps aside, does something with her leg, and gives him a huge shove. Next moment, he's eating sand. No, literally. He gets up visibly angry with his face covered in sand. This time though, he becomes violent and actually tries to hit one of the cousins with his fists. Yeah, tries. She evades one attempt, then grabs his hand, spins it around, and the next moment the boy finds his arm twisted behind his back and he starts screaming. The other cousin now also stands up, pats the young girl on her head, makes another move, and once again the boy gets shoved to the ground, this time by both cousins. Hard. When he looks up, the other cousin actually makes a moving gesture as if she wants to kick him, but without actually moving her legs or anything. She's obviously just threatening him. My girlfriend pokes me with a huge grin on her face and tells me, surely that deserves a point for self-restraint. Don't you agree? She's visibly loving every moment of this. Apparently the boy isn't totally stupid and he runs off, while one cousin immediately turns to the young girl again, who is clearly still having a good time. Not the least upset with the bully. "What was that in God's name?" the mother asks. "Oh, sorry. What the heck was that?" she asks. My girlfriend tells the mother that her cousins are taking the same self-defense classes as she and her sister once did, and that she had decided to pull rank by telling her cousins that it was okay for them to actually defend themselves, as long as they didn't overdo it, of course. The mother wanted to know more about these classes, but unfortunately for her, my girlfriend had to tell her the actual school was located all the way out in a suburb of Tokyo, so not something her daughter would be able to attend. Mummy returns with a BOA, a guard. We're chatting some more for the next 10 minutes, after which the bully's mother storms over to us with a BOA in tow. BOA is Dutch for, I'm not going to be able to pronounce that, which basically means so much as being a deputy, but without the proper training nor having any weapons. Generally speaking, most of them usually handle ticketing people. He tells us that he has gotten a complaint from the woman about people beating up her kid, to which the mother of the young girl immediately snaps, "Whatever happened with letting the kids sort out their own problems?" Now the funny thing is, apparently the whole spectacle didn't really go unnoticed, and before we could say or do anything, someone else had stormed over as well. "I saw the whole thing, officer," an older woman said. "Her brat," she said, pointing at the Karen, "was harassing and beating the kid in the pink dress when these two awesome kids stepped in and protected her." Meanwhile, another man had walked over. "Officer, that brat got everything he deserved. He started it. The only thing that happened was that those girls defended themselves from him." The officer listened to everyone's statements and ended up deciding to ticket the mother of the brat. I assume for disturbing the peace, but I don't know any details because at this time we decided to leave and went our separate ways. Aftermath. During our walk back to the hotel/restaurant, the cousins told us the whole story, and I actually learned something new as well. While they were in the castle, they saw the boy harassing the young girl in the pink dress and immediately decided that this wasn't right, also because he was almost twice her size. He actually pulled on her hair while she was already crying, which made the cousins plain angry. But the only thing they did was get the boy away from the girl. One cousin distracted the boy by blocking him from grabbing the girl's hair again, and she also started taunting him while the other comforted the young girl and led her to the exit, but the one we agreed on. So the girl's mother never saw her leave and got worried. The other cousin managed to lose the boy in the crowd, at first anyway, and she joined her sister near the exit. So I asked my girlfriend why they didn't do all that stuff right away, to which she told me that they weren't allowed to. The first rule of self-defense is apparently always leave if you can. And her cousins are at a level where the use of these techniques outside their school is strictly prohibited, unless there's an actual threat, of course, or if they've been given direct permission by an elder of the same school. A rule which my girlfriend was stretching a little bit, but she told me that she would write up the whole altercation so that the cousins could take her letter back with them. She was actually not kidding when she talked about points for self-restraint, because that would actually be her advice in the letter. But yeah, typical hypocrite behavior. Let the kids sort it out until it suddenly doesn't go your way, eh? Yeah, let the kids sort it out is something you can pretty easily say when your kid is twice the size of the other kid that is in this altercation and is the one bullying them. Like, it's just ridiculous. But if you say that sort of thing, yeah, surely you have to just sit back and watch your kid just get destroyed by some good old martial arts self-defense. Like, if you say it, you got to stick by it. And ultimately, applaud the kids. You know what? Reading this, it actually does make me think, like, every kid, I think, should, if possible, go through some form of self-defense. I mean, this is just so cool. The fact that these two kids were, like, not really even that worried about this guy at all. They were trying to keep the peace, but they knew in the back of their minds, if they had to use any form of self-defense, they were fine with it, and they would be able to do what they had to do to make sure that the other girl didn't get physically harmed. It's a pretty cool position to be in. Like, seeing how calm and collected they were when they were told they were allowed to use self-defense, and just knowing their ability, pretty elite. And they were just having a good time until they had to step in again, and then actually at that point get a little bit physical. But they weren't harming the kid, were they? They were just saying, no, back off, putting them in his place, yeah, with a little bit of physicality, but it's not as if they were like scrapping him, punching him. They just made him eat a little bit of sand. Who doesn't love that? Aunt tries to ruin my wedding. I'm getting married tomorrow, and my narcissistic aunt just tried to ruin my wedding by creating chaos, because what else would she do? This aunt has a long history of accepting invitations to events and then creating some elaborate story days or sometimes hours before not to come. However, she seemed excited enough this time, and I thought maybe it was an important enough milestone for me, so she will finally show up. Doesn't get that much more important than a wedding, I must say. Keep in mind, I've been talking to her about the wedding frequently. She showed me her dress, asked for directions to find the venue, asked me to invite her sons. Originally, only she was invited because I don't have a strong enough relationship with them, and because it's a small wedding. We invited her months ago, and until yesterday, I would never have guessed what has transpired in the last 24 hours. My aunt messaged me to ask me to invite her mother, a very ill and fragile lady who is 92 years old. I said yes, and that I need to check with the venue to accommodate her. Her mum uses a wheelchair, and she travels with a nurse, so it wouldn't only be her, but also the nurse that I had to make room and get food for. I spent hours trying to figure things out with the venue folks. Keep in mind, this is happening 2 days before the wedding, goodness me, so you're probably nervous and stressed enough. And now you're dealing with this. I genuinely cannot think of many things worse within the context of planning and getting ready for your own wedding than doing this. There's no way I'd have the patience for this. I would just say, no, look, you're invited. If you don't want to come, fine. I'm not dealing with this. That's actually insane. What a crazy thing to ask just 2 days before the wedding. Anyway, after that initial message, she then said, No, sorry for asking. It was rude from me to ask you that so close to the dates. She went silent, didn't answer messages or phone calls for more than 12 hours, but then sent a message to the group chat with all the guests saying she wouldn't attend, but saying nothing to me directly. I messaged her again thinking something bad must have happened. I was actually so worried about her. Okay, so you've now put in the work, trying to accommodate her mum and of course her nurse, but then she's actually said out of nowhere, no, don't worry, she doesn't need to come anymore. Great, thank you. Then she finally replies back and tells me that she's deeply offended that I couldn't tolerate anyone making her beg for her mum to attend any event. She's never had to beg, by the way. Oh, and she adds that she still loves me, but that it was a very rude thing for me to do, even when I was told by her before many, many times of the fragile state of her mum and how difficult it was for her to be outside. I told her that I was trying to be mindful of her condition and that it was a very hurtful thing to do. I was disappointed of her actions. She then proceeded to tell me that I was closed-minded and that she was not going to attend because I didn't deserve her presence, and that I was, quote, not that young anymore. How is that relevant? I don't know, but it's just one of those things, you know, when you've lost an argument or you just know you're in the wrong and you just think of any sort of insult to say to try and get back at somebody, even though you know you've completely lost a situation. That is what I've gained from that. I should be sleeping right now, but I needed to write this down somewhere to make sense of what happened. And guys, don't worry, there's an update to this one, which we're going to get straight into. It comes after the wedding. The wedding, you'll be glad to know, was a great success. I was crying tears of joy the whole time because our friends and family surprised us more than once with gifts and gestures to show their love. I'm not a very extroverted person when it comes to throwing parties, and this experience of planning a wedding had me very anxious. Yeah, I'm not surprised. But the result exceeded any expectations. I write this from my bed while I'm sore all over from so much dancing and laughing. As for the toxic aunt, I sent her a single message: goodbye. After that, I blocked her everywhere possible and I showed my family the messages. They all told me to send her to heck together. And there she'll stay, more alone than she already is, with her lies and her poison. I don't even wish her ill, I just don't have any more time to waste on abusive people. Thank you for all the comments that I received on the post. I felt mentally at peace enough to completely forget about her. Thanks all for your empathy and kind words. Yeah, now that is very, very good to hear. I'm going to be honest, like, I'm the sort of person, and I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. It probably is a bad thing. I don't know. I'll get into why I think it might be a bad thing or maybe a good thing in a second. But I'm the sort of person that would just be like, I cannot be bothered. As I sort of mentioned during the first post there, I cannot be bothered with somebody like this. It's not worth the effort. You're causing me so much anxiety and stress that I do not need in the days leading up to my wedding. Just sack them off immediately. So by saying goodbye, I think that was the exact right thing to do. And look, even if you don't feel great saying it, sometimes you got to do things for yourself. It is your wedding at the end of the day. And I definitely think you made the right decision. So also thanks to the people of Reddit for telling OP just to say, now you're done, bye, you're not invited anymore. Nobody's invited. Well, people are invited. Nobody from, you know, your toxic aunt's sort of group is invited. Now, what I mean by what I just said before is that I know a lot of people out there that are people pleasers. Seems like a relatively negative word. I know people that would struggle to do this and would go to silly sort of places to sort out someone like this, even though they're clearly a horrible person. But they would do it just because they are so nice and generous and I suppose accommodating. Now, get in the comments down below. What do you think? Because, you know, maybe you are one of those people. Do you think it's a detriment to your character to sometimes do this? The way I see it is you're just a very generous and kind person, but I see a lot of like shorts and videos where people are saying how not to be a people pleaser, how to say no, which is something that I've never struggled with, you can probably tell. But in the same way that sometimes I think, oh, wouldn't it be good to be as selfless as possible or much more kind, I know from friends that it's not always a good thing, and sometimes their inability to say no is a big negative. So yeah, let me know in the comments down below. Food for thought at the end of this one. Racist customer demanded we fire and replace our employees with white American employees, even though we are an immigrant-owned business. I mean, I've got to just say this off the bat. It doesn't matter if you're an immigrant-owned business or not. Demanding that you fire and replace employees with white American employees is crazy. Anyway, let's get into the story. Okay, I am a 28-year-old woman and I live here in Colorado. But my family and I emigrated here to the States from the former Yugoslavia, with my mother being Serbian and my dad being Montenegrin. My dad owns his own renovation business, which he was inspired to set up after watching the TV show Home Improvements. And even though I have my own full-time job, I do casual work for my dad's business, mainly doing office admin and payroll stuff. My dad has 2 employees, both of whom are Filipino. And one day, we had a customer who booked a job, and my dad sent his 2 employees to go to the customer's house, only for the customer to turn them away, telling them to leave. My dad's worker, who I will call Miguel, texted me to say that the client told them to leave. So I just assumed that they changed their mind and wanted to cancel the job. However, literally a few minutes after the text from Miguel, I received a call from the customer, who I will call Ken, who angrily complained about having 2 Chinese employees come over to his place, complained about them stealing jobs from white men, and actually demanded that we fire them, replace them with white employees, and send over an employee who is white and not an immigrant. I pretty much knew how this conversation was going to play out, but I decided to just roll with it and tell him that those 2 Asian men were our only employees and that our business is an immigrant-owned business, as my dad and I are both immigrants from Montenegro. Ken then demanded that we at least send over an employee who is white, and I told him it makes no difference if the employee is white or not, as the fact that my family and I are European makes us not really different to immigrants from the Philippines, China, Mexico, wherever. He then accused us of stealing jobs, saying things along the lines of, "This is Trump's America now, and that you don't deserve the business." And after letting him rant, I just told him to find someone else to do the job, and hung up. Well, there we go, guys. Some story to start this episode. Absolutely ridiculous. I just hope for your sake as a company that you guys had some form of non-refundable deposit in place, because you've had to send workers out there for nothing. So I hope at least you had some money or some compensation for their time. But let's just talk about the guy for a second. I just don't really understand like what he's even saying. Is he saying that because you employ immigrants, or the fact that you yourself are an immigrant, that you don't deserve the business that you've built for yourself, which obviously wouldn't exist without everything that you've done? How is this stealing jobs? I don't get it. Like, you've just done well yourself. It's not stealing jobs at all, is it? And even if it was, if you're doing the job better than some fat, lazy white guy, then power to you. Keep doing your stuff. You know what would genuinely be amazing to see in America, or just any country in the world, right? Well, the Western world, most likely. What would happen if all non-white people just said for a few days or a week, "I'm not going to work today, and let's just see what happens"? Like, genuinely. So every immigrant, or I guess non-American, let's say for this example, every immigrant, every non-white person just said, "You know what? I'm not working today." I think that the entire country would just like immediately implode, right? I mean, what would happen? Nothing would work. The whole country would just blow up. Genuinely, I mean, think about it. What, like, get in the comments down below. What do you think would happen? I think it would just be absolute anarchy, and probably be so funny to watch from someone in the UK. When my mailbox moving became political. So, when we bought the house and moved in 3 years ago, we accepted the location of the mailbox. It's on the other side of our driveway and across some uneven ground, about 50 yards away from the door. This wasn't a problem back then, but since that point, we've had a series of bad luck. My wife needed a new knee, I sprained an ankle, and while it's healed enough to walk on and go back to work, anyone who's had one knows that it can take a while before it's back to 100%. So, it was decided that the mailbox ought to be moved to the end of our path to the street. Straight ahead, on a flat and smooth surface, only about 30 feet away. We asked the post office what we needed to do to move a mailbox. We were told that all we needed to do was let the driver know that it was being moved and to just move it, making sure that it's numbered to match the house so there's no confusion. We went to the store to buy a new one since the old one was getting a little ratty from getting hit a couple of times, and I installed it this weekend. Which was, to our amusement, the best time to install it, since we actually caught the driver and were able to tell her that here was the new mailbox and that the other was going away. Great. Situation handled. Installation goes well, and now we're on to part 2, the removal of the other mailbox. Here's where my moving the mailbox got political. The old mailbox was on the same post as my neighbour across the street and one house over, so we shared it. During this past election, I posted no signs supporting either of the candidates. My neighbour John, not his real name, had half a dozen signs though. Flags and a banner as well in his yard in support of a certain candidate. John came over as I was removing the old box and complained that the only reason I was doing this was that I didn't support said candidate, and this was my petty ass reason, and that I just didn't want to be associated with him. In truth, I didn't want to be associated with him. Largely before we knew he was a supporter, he wasn't a very pleasant person. Walking my dog, he'd yell at me to keep that goddamn mutt off my yard, even though I was on my side of the street. He'd also call animal control on me about my chickens running loose across his yard, when in reality it was his neighbour to his right that had the chickens. I don't have any, although I did buy a used chicken coop since it's also a very nice unit for keeping my wife's Angora rabbits in. So I can see the confusion. We used to wave to him like we'd do for any of our neighbours we'd see outside, and he never waved back, typically just ignoring us and making a point to look at something, anything else other than us. Unless we had the dog, then he'd watch us like a hawk to make sure we didn't come near his lawn. Honestly, we disliked him long before we knew he was a supporter. I explained the medical condition, the walk through uneven ground that I stated above, but that wasn't enough for him. He threatened to call the HOA. We don't have an HOA, we have a neighbourhood association that only concerns itself with collecting donations for snow removal and mosquito spraying. I just finished removing the mailbox and went back inside, and I vowed to ignore him from here on out. Well, that is the end of the second story, and all I can think is, are we sure that these two people in the first story and the second story aren't the same? I mean, I think it might be right. This guy is, well, let's be honest, the guy in the first story was clearly a Trump supporter, as well as this guy as well. So, I mean, the top comment here says, your neighbour is mentally ill. I don't know if I'd go that far, but yeah, mentally there's a lot going on there, that is for sure. And once again, probably a racist. I mean, to be fair, that's a bit harsh. We don't have any evidence to suggest he's racist, but I would just love if John was the same person as in the first story. It would just make me laugh. Brother throws fit because he didn't get a job interview. So this happened a couple of years ago, but no matter what, I can't get over how entitled my brother acted. For context, my brother, who was at the time about 23 years old, and my older sister, who was 28, both applied to one of the only jobs hiring near where they lived. The job was for a cashier position, which my sister had several years of experience in customer service, while my brother only worked 1 year at a factory in his life and quit because he didn't get a raise, claiming it was unfair when staff who worked there for 5+ years got raises. But anyways, one day we were out shopping when my sister got a call from the job they both applied for. They wanted her in for an interview. When hearing that, my brother basically threw a fit. He told my sister it was unfair you got an interview and I didn't when I put in an application a week before you did, and I even called to check up on it. I reminded him that our sister has experience while he doesn't. He then repeated, but I put in an application first. I should be first. Then I told him that's not how interviews work. They wait for the ones with experience so they don't have to do much training. He then got even more upset and claimed that the store is sexist and she's only getting hired because she's a female, which honestly made me so irritated. He was acting like a child, and our dad tried backing him up, telling my sister to put in a good word for your brother. My sister told our dad there's no way she can do that because even if she gets hired, it would be wrong to immediately convince them to hire our brother. While this conversation was going on, my brother kept on going on about how the owner is male, so he must be sexist and only want females, since currently the only staff there are women. So in order to get in, he needed our sister to tell them to hire him too during her interview. I noticed my sister getting upset throughout all of this. At first, she was so excited to get the interview and was hoping that everyone would be happy for her. But instead, no, they acted like she was wrong for getting the interview instead of our brother. I told my dad and brother that that was enough and that she got the interview because she has several years of experience under her belt, while our brother had none, and it had nothing to do with her gender, and that no, she wasn't going to mention our brother during her interview or after getting hired, because if they didn't contact him, clearly he didn't cut it, and just stop. After that, everyone went silent. I mean, this is absolutely crazy because what your brother, OP, is asking your sister to do, and for some reason your dad is supporting him on this, is to potentially sacrifice her own job, her own career, if she does, get this job. By the way, she's only got an interview so far, for the sake of her brother. Like, imagine you went into a job interview and your sibling had said to you, yeah, during your interview, would you mind just letting them know that I have also applied for the job and I also want it. Firstly, are there even 2 jobs available, or are they just hiring 1 person? Because imagine you were competing for the same job and your brother was like, no, just tell them about me in your interview. I want to get it. And secondly, like, you're just completely scuppering your own chances if you just say, yeah, this is why I deserve the job. But also, have you seen my brother's CV? He could also be great. And also, even if you do get the job and you're in your first week or whatever, like your brother's asking, imagine you're in a new job and you say, this is great, guys. Really happy to be here. I really feel settled now, to the extent that I can now say, would you consider hiring my brother after just a few days of working at an institution? I mean, that would be downright ridiculous. Your brother is clearly very entitled. I think your dad is as well. Maybe that's where he gets it from. But yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is, if your brother hasn't got an interview, he's not qualified enough and he doesn't deserve one. And that's on him. Her face went red in anger. I thought I'd share a story from my time as a worker at a very popular theme park in Florida. I've mentioned in other stories I've shared that I worked at an attraction. One day, I was fastpass line greeter, and it was in the middle of peak season. We were ridiculously crowded with wait times for standby being 2 hours, single rider around 50 minutes, and fastpass over an hour. We were instructed to allow people in on the time stamped on their fastpass to help thin the line. Sometimes when it wasn't as busy, we'd allow people to enter 5 minutes earlier than their ride reservation. A woman wearing white shorts, a fanny pack, and a white sun visor came walking up happily with her group and showed me her fastpass. I stopped her because it was 10 minutes early. I politely explained she'd have to wait to enter on the time stamps on the fastpass ticket. Oh, come on. Really? It's just a few minutes early, she said. I apologise, Mum. Unfortunately, we're very busy, so you're going to have to wait for the time on your fastpass. That's ridiculous. Everyone else let us in a few minutes early. She then tries to walk past me, but that's not happening. I blocked her by stepping in her way. I smile and I ask her to step to the side. Ugh, she says. I continue to let people in according to the times on their passes as the woman glares angry daggers at me. A man next to her tells her to just wait. It's not that serious, but she is fuming. Literally 3 minutes go by and she storms back up and shoves the pass in my face. Good enough now. Can I go in now? At this point, I'm trying to remain magical. Mom, you still have 7 minutes until you can enter. Please step to the side. You're joking. 7 minutes? You're not seriously going to make me wait for 7 minutes? Yes, I am. Please step to the side. Another 2 minutes go by as a line of people come in. I check everyone's time, not looking at faces so much, but hands and tickets when I see the same ticket. I look up and it's the same woman again. She still had 5 minutes to wait. Now I'm irritated and she's irritated. I just stare at her for a few seconds quietly before doing a 2-finger point back to the side where her group and others were waiting patiently. She stormed back off as my coworker Kate walked up with my brake slip. The woman instantly got a grin on her face when she saw I was about to leave. Her grin, though, annoyed me so much, and my petty box was immediately switched to on. So I gave Kate a brief version of events, and I instructed her to make sure she waited until the exact time printed on the frickin' fastpass ticket. She laughed a bit and said, okay. I walk away, but only a few feet, when she sauntered over, arrogantly grinning to Kate, and shows her the ticket. Sorry, but you're gonna have to wait until the time printed on the fastpass, Mom, Kate says. The woman, with her face turning incredibly red in anger, says, did she tell you to do that? Well, I have to work with her. I'm just standing pettily a few feet away, saying nothing. I feel like I talk about customer service jobs quite a lot in my episodes, because a lot of the stories that we see, especially with entitled people, are like just terrible customers. I feel like Disneyland or Disney World or whatever it's called, wherever you are in the US or in France or whatever, must be one of the toughest jobs when you get like an entitled person like this. And as OP said, like you're trying to maintain the magic and make this place so beautiful and special for children. I remember when I went there, and this is in France. I've never been to Disneyland or Disney World in America, but Disneyland Paris, and you know, the people that work there must be amazing. I don't really remember any of them in particular, but I just felt like it was such a special environment and like otherworldly and just almost heavenly. And obviously that is down to the people working there as much as it is everything else. Because imagine if the people working there weren't like in that sort of mindset or so positive or like dreamy, it just wouldn't work, right? So to have people like this Karen of a woman potentially like jeopardizing that and ruining that for kids like myself, because I don't know how you, OP, have kept your cool as well as this. Like, fair play to you for doing that. You know, imagine me as a kid. I'm in the queue behind this Karen and I see her having a go at you, and then you're just like, I can't be bothered with this sort of person anymore. And you flip or you lose your head a little bit. That would just ruin the entire experience for me as a kid. So fair play to you for maintaining your cool. The point being, I feel like this would be one of the worst sort of customer service roles there is at an extreme, because you have to stay so professional and so positive. Maybe that's the case in a lot of customer service roles, but I feel like at Disney World, that's like the epitome of you've got to stay in character. You've got to stay positive because who knows who's watching, and yeah, it's an amazing experience for kids like myself. But fair play to you. Well done for doing your job. But yeah, I don't think I'd be able to manage with people like this. I do not understand this kind of entitlement at all. Lack of basic self-preservation. My daughter is 32 and has a live-in boyfriend who is 34. He's also the father of our grandchild, of whom we have custody. Now, her boyfriend has a level of entitlement I frankly cannot understand. I'm just left with my mouth gaping open at his attitude. He moved to our state over 5 years ago, following our daughter after he was evicted from his family's home for being a deadbeat. Both his mother and aunt have kicked him out and will not allow him to return. His mother kept his dog and kicked her son out. That's funny to me. Since his arrival, he's not held a regular job for more than a week. His most recent example was him working for a grocery store in the deli. He quit after a week when they passed him over for an assistant manager's spot. A week. He started many jobs in the past 5 years and quit nearly immediately after they offend him in some way, which usually is a trumped up reason based on some slight offense, mostly not treating him like the royalty he thinks he is. Another example, a friend of a friend got him a job on a construction site. He just had to arrive with safety boots and he'd be guaranteed to have a job holding a sign that said slow, stop on it. Just stand there and hold the sign. He missed the start date. However, he lucked out as the FOAF involved was sick that first day and they rescheduled a start for the following week. Boyfriend didn't show, no job for you. He's done some DoorDash and similar gig work, but will only do it if his girlfriend goes along, so she can do the jump out and get or drop the package part of the gig. He just wants to drive. This means that he's only willing to work when she isn't at work. This is now moot since their cars have been repossessed. My daughter later lost her $25 per hour full-time job. Her fault, see the below note, and she's now cleaning houses, Airbnbs, apartments as gig work. She is their sole income source. At one point, he got into a state program that gave you a place to live, gave you drug, alcohol, employment counseling, meds, and work to integrate you into society. He didn't last a week after he refused to participate in group counseling sessions. And of course, participation is a requirement for the program. There was a time where our daughter was in jail/rehab where he didn't have a place to live and was living on the street. He'd rather do that than get a job. He also refused to stay in a shelter. It was beneath him. There's certainly a victim component here. Nothing is ever his fault. Everything happens to him and it's all terribly unfair. He has to be the center of attention. He left a play date with his kid after they weren't paying enough attention to him. There's an entire history here that rapidly gets into too long didn't read territory. Drugs, DV charges, child neglect, TPOs, etc. They're all relatively minor misdemeanor charges and issues, the kind of thing the judge gives you probation for. He's also failing to participate in any of his probation requirements, therapy/drug testing, and is likely to be violated soon. Most of what seems to be missing is, to me, basic self-preservation. If I meet my probation requirements, I don't go to jail. If I work this week, I can buy food. He seems to lack any awareness of cause and effect. For the record, he spent about a week in jail after the DV thing and was calling his girlfriend multiple times per day to bail him out. He doesn't like jail, but won't do anything to avoid it. She did bail him out and he missed his court date afterwards. I just cannot understand that he doesn't seem to understand that if you work, then you can eat and sleep in a bed. His avoidance of employment and any form of responsibility is like some sort of compulsion or mental illness. There's nothing rational about it. It strains my liberal brain, the part that says, give people a hand up, not a hand out. He only wants the handout. Any hand up is refused. So, thanks for reading my rants. Apologies for the ellipses and parenthetical remarks. I write like my ADD brain thinks, which is with a lot of parentheses. Fair enough. That makes sense to me. Well, there we go. That is the end of that one. And I think all I can say is that this guy just seems like the biggest loser ever. I mean, to be fair, it's getting a little bit dangerous with like the drugs, the charges, like the child neglect, etc. It sounds to me as if this guy could just do with going to prison for a bit, just to get out of everyone's lives. Maybe it would help him, but mostly just I feel for your daughter. Like, what is she doing? Messing around with him. Like, it's crazy. I don't know. I don't know what she sees in him. I don't know. That's the power of love, I suppose. But goodness me, how can you be with someone as pathetic as this? Is actually insane. And yeah, as I said in the intro, this guy is a definition of entitled. Just nothing going for you at all. No drive, no effort in your life to improve it whatsoever, and just expects things to be handed to him. What a joke. Entitled bully gets their just rewards. My wife has an entitled coworker / acquaintance. I use the term acquaintance as she does run in our friend circle, but we try to limit or avoid contact with her. We'll call her Carrie. Anyway, Carrie is known for bullying co-workers at work, saying that she can get people fired, she can't, screaming at people, and at large, just general bad behavior. Her favorite thing to intimidate people with is to tell them to F around and find out. Remember this for later. So, Carrie had an F buddy. Nothing serious, just a guy she'd bang and kick out the door. Carrie is also notorious for collecting engagement rings. She'd begin dating a guy, get a ring from them, get them to pay off some bill for her, then kick them to the curb. Again, I bring this up only as context to her character and to reinforce that the F-buddy guy meant nothing to her. She didn't actually date him or try getting a ring from him. She used him and then kicked him to the curb whenever someone with money showed her attention. She'd also frequently talk trash about this guy behind his back. So, Carrie was on one of her short-term engagements. So the F-buddy, let's call him Bill, was currently not someone she was seeing, as the new guy just bought her a $6,000 ring. I'm serious, she actually collected engagement rings like they were Pokemon, and paid 10 grand to get her roof fixed. So she was happy with this guy and had no interest at all in Bill. Enter Mandy. Now Mandy is another co-worker of my wife and Carrie. I personally don't know her, but from what I've been told, she just got out of a 15-year marriage where she wasn't allowed to do anything and was very controlled. Carrie and Mandy are friends. Well, drinking buddies. Carrie likes to drink a lot, and by like, I mean all the time, but nevertheless, they were on good terms. So randomly, Mandy meets Bill. Mandy doesn't know Bill's history with Carrie, nor that he even knows her. They hit it off, like really good, and they're getting along so well that they begin dating. And it blossoms into a great relationship, one that's built on respect and love. Carrie finds out and loses her frickin' mind. Again, she never dated Bill and never wanted to date Bill. She never had any interest in him besides sex. Heck, she's currently engaged to a guy, but no, Mandy took her man, and she let the world know about it. Carrie started by going to their boss daily and asking him, "Why does that little female dog still work here?" She would also loudly exclaim this on the work floor for all to hear. Also, Carrie spent a whole hour yelling and screaming at her for something that Mandy didn't even do. She'd also frequently harass them both when they were out and about in town. She'd loudly call Mandy a female dog, a tramp, the C word, just all the nasty things you can say about someone. She would not only loudly say these things in their proximity, but tell anyone that would listen, or not listen, basically just anyone around her, how she was wronged by Mandy and Bill, and what she thought about it, and that Mandy is effing around, so she's going to find out. Fast forward 2 months, Mandy and Bill are still together and extremely happy. Carrie is, not surprisingly, no longer engaged to that guy. Also, not surprisingly, she's already been engaged to another guy and married after a week. Where is she finding these men, by the way? Who are they? It was unfortunately the 2-year anniversary of the passing of a mutual friend of all parties involved. Carrie is using this time to take the week off work to drink. This is a whole other can of worms. Basically, she isn't as close to this person who passed as she claims to be. But anyways, once work is over, everyone else agrees to go to the bar to have a drink to celebrate the departed life. So again, once Carrie, after 2 full days of drinking, sees Mandy, she begins to lay into her with all the slut-shaming stuff. Mandy, finally having enough of it, attempts to talk to Carrie in an attempt to reconcile. Carrie's having none of this and keeps calling her names and proceeds to tell her that Mandy is freaking around and is going to find out, and ends calling her a C word. Well, I'm guessing something snapped, and Mandy straight snapped and threw a beer bottle straight at Carrie, hitting her in the face. Imagine the cop in The Big Lebowski throwing the coffee cup, knocking her on her butt. There's a slight pause and someone I don't know pipes up. It looks like you were the one that effed around and found out. Carrie, obviously stunned, gets up and leaves. The next day, she showed up to work with a very obvious black eye. She's not saying anything to Mandy, but she's going around to everyone else complaining that she was the victim, not understanding that everyone has been watching her bully this poor girl for the last few months. And that's kind of it. Nothing else has happened since then, but if it does, I'll let you know. Sorry, this got long-winded. There we go, some classic entitled people karma right there. Like, this person is just a bully, you're absolutely right, and no one was ever going to take her side in this one. And I'm sure that a lot of people at your work are pretty delighted, I mean, as far as you can be delighted that someone has been physically hurt, that she got assaulted, because sometimes that just needs to happen. Now, a few of you in the comments of one of my recent videos, and you were right to do this, by the way, said, when I said about sometimes I do think like a little bit of violence is the answer, you said that's wrong. And I kind of agree. However, again, like, I read something like this. This person's getting horribly bullied. Nothing was changing. Is a bottle in the eye the worst thing? Like, she's fine, isn't she? She's got a black eye. That'll heal in a week. If she's going to stop bullying, I don't know. I'm just saying. Sometimes violence can be the answer in rare, extreme circumstances where everything else has been tried. A little bottle to the eye, you know, maybe that's the way forward. I'm not being 100% serious there, but I don't know. The world's unfair, man. Sometimes you need some good karma like that. Now, the next 2 stories I've got for you today are relatively similar. They involve a couple of entitled people entering locations very, very close to their closing time. Let's get into the first one right now. Then you should have come in before 10. This is a story from the time I spent working in a kitchen. It was a restaurant right next to a music venue, and we got busy on concert weekends, but during the off-season, it could get quite quiet with just a few regulars. We had music nights, and the bar was usually serving drinks until close, so we would be open all year. During a quiet late fall day, after doing cleaning and checking dates, we had some apples that needed to be used for something before they got mealy. I used the opportunity to work on my pie recipe. We usually didn't do pies, so it was a change of pace and it kept me busy so I wouldn't be forced to scrub some unused corner. The pie was great, and the head chef said it was one of the best he'd ever tasted. He even took one home to eat. Kitchen closes, and we clean everything and break down our stations, put dates on our stuff, and throw it in the walk-in. I get to the point I could wait out the last 10 minutes at the bar. It's 5 minutes to close, and I'm waiting for my ride home. In walk the entitled customers. 2 people for drinks at 10:55 isn't unusual. They're told we're closing soon. They say, though, "We want food." I stand up. "I'm sorry, the kitchen is closed and the line cooks have gone home. We can't serve food." "I thought this was a restaurant." The guy in the leather jacket sneers. "Well, we have some apple pie that I made myself. I can serve if you want dessert, no charge." I was using my best customer service to get the bartender a good tip. "We want real food," the woman in the fur replies indignantly. "Then you should have come in before 10. The bar is now closed. Get out," my bartender friend says unceremoniously and starts turning off the lights. I walk to the kitchen, taking their cue, and I turn the lights off. I was in the walk-in when I heard the guy follow me into the now dark kitchen and say, "Seriously?" The bartender says, "No, that's not the door out, and I can't have you in the kitchen. Please leave the way you came in." The bartender starts printing end-of-night credit card reports. To someone unfamiliar with the kitchen, it must have looked like I walked through the door and vanished. The couple stomped out of the bar, and I poked my head out of the fridge to turn off the parking lot lights, letting them go to their car in darkness. Later, when the bartender drove me home, they told me that that couple has only been there a few times. They've never tipped, and they've argued the bill with the owner on more than one occasion. She'd always wanted to kick them out, but when they refused free dessert to try and get food an hour after the kitchen had closed and were so rude about it, she finally had her opportunity. The two of them never came back while I was working there. The bartender and I ate pie at her house and we laughed about it. You know what's a shame about this story is that you were so nice to them in the first place. Like, offering them pie for free that you just made that isn't for them is so nice. But no, they're just entitled, just horrible people. Fair play to the bartender as well for being like, you know what, now you're done, get out, I can't be done with this. And also, I really have like a funny picture of them walking back to their car in the parking lot, and the lights just suddenly going from being bright to off, and them just being like, oh right, well, we've just been done here. Great stuff. I kicked a client out the door because he came in 5 minutes before closing. I work at a copy center. We print documents and photos. At 9:54 p.m, a guy came in to print business cards. First of all, why the heck is he here 5 minutes before closing time? Second, he came in with something that can't be solved in 5 minutes because A, it's frickin' business cards, and B, he started asking a bunch of stupid follow-up questions, meaning he had no idea what he needed. You're probably guessing that business cards are printed and sliced on a machine in large runs. We have a minimum of 50 plus pieces in our production facility, and that it's not done in a regular office with a Xerox machine. Even if it isn't, that's fine, because you'll likely listen politely to my explanation, realize you won't get the results you want now, and go home afterwards. But he didn't go home. He continued to ask if it was possible to print on a regular sheet of paper right now. I, knowing the tricks of Xerox, said that no, double-sided printing of business cards will not work. It prints with a shift of a few millimeters, and if you adjust the layout of business cards to this shift, you'd just be freaking tired of moving this trash by a millimeter on the screen, but the result won't be achieved, and the color will definitely not be the same. He continued to insist that he needed these stupid business cards and asked how long it would take me to adjust this layout, to which he received a direct answer, no time, because I won't be doing it, especially now. But even after that, he didn't calm down, and he asked me to make him some that are at least one-sided. To make him finally go away, I actually printed him a couple of sheets of his business cards on plain paper. I'll clarify, I don't mind getting into a person's situation if they urgently need to do something to help them, even if working hours are over, but this guy came in with a blissful smile and a pile of questions, not giving a frick about the fact that it's not my working hours. What killed me was when he started asking irrelevant questions, like, where do you go to college? Again, nothing wrong with small talk, but not at 10 p.m. I realised he's a total jerk, and at this pace, he's going to sit here until he's tongue-tied or ends up starting to hit on me. I asked him if he'd take these papers, which he didn't like the colour of course, and he said no. So I pointed him to the door with a straight hand and said goodbye. So that is the end of that one. OP has left a little comment at the end, a little edit, saying, after reading the comments, I wanted to add one clarification. The client was out of the door at 10:03 p.m. after my shift was over. Fair enough if you think that service workers should be overworked for free because of your poor time management. Go and touch grass. The world doesn't revolve around you, which I respect. You're not getting paid overtime for helping him out, you know, as much as you're saying earlier that yeah, you would normally help. If someone is just doing this on purpose, which it seems like they are, like, if you don't have the courtesy to be like, I know it's really late, can I do this? Like, do you have 5 minutes, whatever, to even ask that question, and then just ask loads of random questions when it must be pretty obvious that this person, OP, is trying to get out and close up, then you are a bit of a jerk, realistically, aren't you? So, yeah, there's like, on the one hand, good customer service. On the other hand, I'm not getting paid for this for overtime and you're just being horrible. So what's the point? So I rate what you did there. Well done, and it sounds like you only lost 3 minutes of your time. My sister wants to use a burial plot she doesn't own. My sister, who is a 54-year-old woman, and I, a 63-year-old man, are estranged for a lot of reasons. She was the golden child. I was given a 63 Chevy pickup when I got my driver's license. She got a Mustang convertible. I went to college and she did drugs and had children without marriage. I got student debt. She got a mobile home, which she of course lost due to drugs. She had 2 wonderful kids that we were able to get taken from her, and they're doing well. Our father raised them. My father and mother were divorced in the 1970s, due in part to the stress of my sister. My mother tried to help her. She let her live with her and helped her get jobs, but she always relapsed. So now to the present situation. My father died 4 years ago, and I bought him a nice burial plot in Bozeman, MT. The plot is in my name, and it's in a very nice location in the veterans section. My mother died last summer. I went up and was at the hospital when she died. My sister was nowhere. We were able to reconnect without her. My mum's will stated that my sister and I were supposed to get the house jointly, but somehow she got on the deed by right of survivorship, which meant that she got it. She tried to get me to help pay the remaining mortgage, but that wasn't going to happen, so she had to sell, and I bought it. She was mad and took mum's remains and disappeared, so we couldn't hold a ceremony. Now, 6 months later, she reappears and says that she's paying for a burial. But here is the catch. My mother is a veteran, so she has a veteran group to pay for the room, the VA for the headstone, and I get a call from the funeral home asking if they bury her with Dad, someone who she was divorced from for 50 years. Okay, so a pretty ridiculous start to this one. As I said, there are 3 updates to this story, so there's going to be a lot more depth here. But I've just got to say, like off the bat, your parents have been divorced for 50 years, 50 years, but you think they want to be buried together. It's pretty ridiculous, I'm going to be honest. I mean, even if they had a good relationship with each other after they were divorced, like, still no, that's insane. Also, it's not your burial plot, so you just can't do that. But anyway, as I said, 3 more updates to come. Let's get into the first. There is a lot more to this story. So then, the update. Now, this was posted a couple of weeks after the original post. After some research, I offered to pay to enter my mother in the veteran wall. My sister threw a fit. Not directly at me, we don't talk. She just let the funeral home know that she wouldn't return the remains. Sorry, I completely forgot about that. She has the remains and just isn't giving them back. I mean, that really is just mental. Anyway, I would have to buy a new plot, but I just bought a house and I'm furnishing it, so money is tight. She knew that. It was mum's house and she's mad I bought it. She's driven by several times. I am about to put it out on the short-term rental market. So, after talking to my family, the grandchildren and others, I've thrown in the towel. We are burying mum in Dad's plot. She will have a eye-ground brass marker, it says here. I'm not entirely sure what that is, but there we go. It kills me that my sister has reduced my mum's service to a brass welcome mat to my father's headstone. Oh, okay, I see. My family has said they will know, but dang, it hurts. And my sister cannot take some money from the sale of the house and buy a plot or split the cost with me. Now, the comments below this, and that is the end of the first update, are saying, you are a family member. You can have her moved once it's done, which is interesting because surely she is also, your sister is also a family member. Somebody else has said, just dig her up and put her elsewhere once this has settled down. Your father will thank you. I'm not sure about that. I mean, like, that definitely isn't legal. OP has said to that, good thought. I don't know. But I think the main thing is this comment here. If one of my kids buried me next to a man I divorced 40 years ago, I would haunt the ever-living trash out of them. Folks, this is why it's important to document your final wishes and put someone you can trust in charge. And that, I suppose, is the main point. Let's get into the second update. This was posted just a week ago at the time of recording. Today is the day of the burial. I was going to update afterwards just to say we got it done, but then the last 20 hours hit. My sister cancelled the room at the funeral home and made it a gradeside service only. She got a refund for the room. The reason she gave? They are shooting guns for the salutes and that should be outside. I found out when the funeral home called last night to ask me to pick up the urn and take it to the grave. My sister is in a wheelchair and cannot come graveside. I sent the word out on the family message and her son, the only one who talks to her, exploded, as did her daughter. He called and she cried. An honest answer would probably be, I needed drug money and the disability check is days away, but whatever. So I arranged to get a table at a military-themed restaurant in Bozeman. If you're from the area, you know the one, and we'll gather there to tell stories. Just a few minutes ago, I get a call from the funeral home and they were offering a room at a discount, but we're sticking with our plans. Absolutely insane. Cancelling the room at the funeral home to spend the money on whatever, probably drugs, I don't know. Crazy. Anyway, some comments I would like to make, continues OP. Some people think that I'm blaming my sister for becoming addicted to drugs and alcohol at 10. Oh my goodness. I'm not. I blame my parents for moving to a drug-rich area, the government for not handling the drug issue, and the medical establishment for not seeing addiction as the disease it was at the time. My post would be much longer if I went into the social and political issues of the late 70s and early 80s and how it broke up the nuclear family. I blame my parents for trying to buy her good behaviour and a recession for the stress that ended their marriage. They also never forced her to finish school, which limited her ability to succeed. I blame her for wasting the multiple opportunities she was given as an adult. She was given a car, repossessed, a mobile, lost because she spent the welfare money on drugs instead of space rent, a truck, partially restored 63 Chevy C10, sold for drug money, lost custody of 2 kids who have turned out well. This list doesn't include the money she's taken from people over the years. As far as this funeral goes, my mother would have been buried in her home state of Pennsylvania near her family in September if my sister hadn't raked her remains and disappeared. Okay, and now let's get into the final update so far. I've obviously not read this, but something tells me that there's going to be more to this story unless this is a very definitive third update, but this was posted 5 days ago. The service was Thursday at 1, and the American Legion Gallatin Valley Post 14, I hope I pronounced that correct, did the final salute with the rifle volley and taps. The Navy sent an officer and enlisted to do the flag presentation. I told them about her service and said some words to the people who came, but being in a snow-covered field limited who could come. Afterwards, we met at a restaurant and told stories. The grandkids were really interested in what kind of mother she was, and they were surprised when we told them she drove a motorcycle to work. Now, I'm sure you're interested as to what happened with my sister. When I arrived at the funeral home, I was shocked to find what little she'd arranged. I drove her remains to the gravesite, and my brother actually put them into the ground. At my dad's funeral, we arranged for a hearse to take his remains up to the cemetery. It was a little funny. Me, my wife, my brother, and my mum's urn took a quick drive down Main Street, Bozeman, so we could say goodbye before hitting the cemetery. Well, while the ceremony was going on, an SUV came up. It was my sister, watching from the road. I arranged for the flag to go to my brother, since I had my dad's flag. I could see her shouting as he was presented the flag. After that, we each said something over the grave and headed to our cars. My sister called her son over and handed him 2 bags containing vials of mum's ashes, one for him and one for my niece. At the restaurant, they gave them to me and my brother. They are great kids. She then drove by yelling at me for ruining the ceremony or something, then drove off. So that's it until summer, when we'll decide to either move mum to Pennsylvania to be with her family, my brother is looking into that issue, or a national cemetery, or we scatter her ashes. Now, I would like to address some comments made before we end this. 1. Why am I short-term renting the house? Well, my initial plan was long-term rental until my wife and I retired in 2 to 3 years. But my son, while working on the house, has fallen in love with Montana and wants to move up at the end of summer. So we're short-term renting until then. I've met with some neighbours and given them my contact information in case a client gets out of hand. The house is near ski and outdoor adventure activities, so I don't see a problem. Number 2, I do not blame my 10-year-old or 13-year-old sister. It is the 30-plus-year-old woman who never took the opportunities to get straight seriously. I also blame my parents, but they paid with their marriage and the fact they never had the retirement they wanted. I also blame the government, but that's a major rant. And 3, why didn't I take her kids? Well, I tried, but in California, they will fight to keep the kids with a bad mother. My wife and I would buy groceries and take them to them. I took the kids to the dentist, but we were limited to what we could do. And she knew if she gave up the kids, she would lose a bargaining chip. It was a cloak and dagger operation to get the kids to Montana and then in front of a judge that finally saved them. Okay, there we go. That is it for the story so far, and I'm not quite sure where to start. I feel like OP has sort of said along similar lines to what I would say in terms of his sister's drug addiction and just his sister as an entity in this story. There's not too much more that I would say differently to what he said. I mean, look, drug addiction is a disease, obviously, as he said. It's extremely serious, and I don't think it would be right if we just sat here and blamed his sister for being such a terrible person because of this drug addiction. However, that is not to say that they should just get off with everything they've ever done in their life either. And yeah, how they've acted for decades has been terrible. And of course, they are to blame in part for that, despite the addiction. So now that that's been dealt with, and if you have differing views, fair play, get them in the comments. I do want to just talk briefly about how she acted at the funeral. Now, obviously, it's not funny, right? A funeral of anyone. But I just have an image in my head of just a really crazy lady just doing drive-bys at a funeral, hurling abuse out the window, saying, "You're ruining this. This is terrible." And then, like, the fact that she's given vials of her mum's ashes to her grandkids or whatever, or to your niece and nephew, sorry, and they've just given them to you and your brother is so good. I mean, they do seem like great kids, but phenomenal. Yeah, I mean, like, here you go, kids. Some vials of your grandma's ashes. That same grandma that I've just been, hiding from everyone and keeping all her remains. You can keep these, and they just run off and give them to their uncles. I mean, just unbelievable. But yeah, I don't know. Sometimes in these really serious stories, you just have to find a little bit of joy. Not very funny, but sort of like more funny, as in odd. But there we go. I mean, that is it for now. Maybe we're gonna get an update in the summer, because I feel like, yeah, there really is more to this story. I don't think that your mum, OP, is gonna stay there. It just doesn't feel like we have a resolution yet. So I'm really interested and intrigued to see what happens next. Our friend's entitled sister tried to force her way onto our trip to Egypt. This story happened quite a few years ago with me and my friends. But after reading quite a few stories on this subreddit, I feel that now is a good time as any to share this post. On November 2019, me and a couple of my friends, Haley, Rose and Rachel, were given an opportunity to travel to the Valley of the Kings in Egypt. Note that we are archaeology graduates. While our families and friends were excited and proud of us for being able to go on this trip, Rachel's family did not feel the same way. Rachel's younger sister, Lisa, was the golden child of her family. Anything she wanted, her parents gave to her. While Rachel had to take out a student loan to pay for college, Lisa's parents paid for her tuition, only for Lisa to drop out 2 years in. Instead, Lisa chose to try and build a career being a model and influencer on Instagram. When Rachel mentioned that she was going to Egypt with us, that our plane tickets and accommodation had been already taken care of for archaeological fieldwork, Lisa got jealous, as she felt that the trip and taking photos of herself in Egypt for Instagram would help launch her modeling career. That said, their parents demanded that Rachel give her tickets to Lisa, as they felt Lisa was more deserving of them. To which Rachel obviously said no. It was already paid for by the foundation specifically for her and our group, who were trained to do this kind of work. According to Rachel, she's had back and forth arguments with her family leading up to the trip. She actually eventually just left home and moved in with her boyfriend, now husband, into his apartment. I held on to our plane tickets as we were all to meet up at my dad's place in the morning before we head off to the airport. At the time, I still lived with my dad. That said, as me, Rachel, Haley and Rose were at my place just hanging out and getting ready, Lisa pulled up with her mum and came knocking on my door. Apparently, they were demanding one more time that Rachel give her ticket to Lisa. Lisa even had a couple of bags with her as well. Before I continue, I'll just give you a better understanding of Lisa and Rachel's family and why they may behave or think this way. Rachel is the only one in her family who has actually finished college. Rachel pretty much took care of herself for much of her childhood, as her parents were too fixated on Lisa. Their parents moved to Los Angeles from Florida to try and become actors, but failed. They moved up here for some reason, and now their dad works as a truck driver, and their mum, I think, works at a grocery store. Rachel's family treated formal education and academia in general as a joke, and they didn't really support the idea of anyone going to college until Lisa decided she wanted to try going herself, as previously mentioned. Haley interjected, interrupting Lisa and her mum and pointing out again that this was not a vacation, this was an archaeological trip, and we were going there to do actual work. Haley went on to point out that it's Rachel's name on the plane ticket and on our accommodation in Luxor, so she asked Lisa and her mum questions like, how do you think Lisa is going to actually get on the plane? Who will Lisa be traveling with in Egypt? And where will she be staying there? Apparently, Lisa, despite not being friends with us at all, and her mum expected the rest of us, me, Haley and Rose, to just somehow convince customs to let her through and get on the flight, as well as expecting us to look after her and accompany her. I should also note that apart from Rachel, nobody in her family has ever travelled on a plane before. Lisa and their mum have never been overseas, and the only international travelling their dad ever did was driving trucks to and from Mexico. That said, I'm guessing this is why they don't seem to know how plane tickets or customs work, but that's just my assumption. Well, that is a pretty fair assumption, although on the other hand, you could just say that they seem pretty dumb anyway, and may genuinely think that the name on your plane ticket doesn't matter and you can just get a ticket and use it whoever you are. I then pointed out to Lisa that if she really wants to go to Egypt, she could just buy her own tickets and book her own accommodation. However, Lisa said she didn't want to do any of that and she wanted Rachel's place on our trip, as she wanted all the expenses to be paid for and for us to accompany her, as she didn't want to travel by herself. Lisa and her mum eventually left after seeing that trying to argue and force her way onto our trip was not getting them anywhere, with the four of us, me, Haley, Rachel and Rose, thankfully flying off to Egypt. After the dig at the Valley of the Kings, we did get to go and do touristy stuff, such as touring Cairo and seeing the pyramids of Giza. As for Lisa, while she still posts a lot on Instagram, she seems to have given up on a modelling and or influencer career. She's now just working in a warehouse. After the pandemic, she did get to go on vacation to Cancun though, but that is about it. Okay, and there we go. That is it for the first story of today's episode. And the one thing I will say is that I am at least happy that Lisa didn't manage to make it to Egypt and didn't manage to climb up the pyramids of Giza. In my mind, and I'm not sure why, actually I know why, it's because over the past few days I've seen at least like 2 or 3 videos of tourists scaling the pyramids. I thought Lisa might also do this. So at least she hasn't done that and defaced, some of the most important landmarks there are in the world, or at least ruined them a little bit. But yeah, the audacity of both Lisa, but also just her mum, genuinely insane, is all I can say. Let's move on to the second story. My entitled sister thought she could make a living breeding pugs, and she let her kids live in the filth because of her dog hoarding. So to start this one off, OP has left an edit right at the top saying this: "I'm already getting hate for this post, and believe me, I don't blame anyone for it. I was spineless back then. I wanted to call CPS or something, but anytime I even so much as mused about it, the family laid into me. So I focused more on helping to take care of the dogs and kids. But my sister's increasing toxicity only made it worse. And by the time I did take action, it was after my sister was finally evicted. I'm not asking anyone to see me as a hero here. I was a coward. But what I'm posting is 100% the truth." Okay, so there we go. Now let's get into the post. My sister for years believed she could make a living breeding pugs. She used to have a breeding pair she named after sibling characters, ironically. Well, that's a bit weird. The first time the female got pregnant, I had to help with the birth. And that pug had like 10 puppies. It was months of dealing with a stinky puppy pen, and my nephews and I having to take care of them while my sister wasn't home. She managed to find homes for all but one of the puppies, and the final one she refused to sell because he was too cute. I knew it. I knew from the start that she'd want to keep one of the puppies for herself. She denied it, but then she did. Just to try and make it look like she wasn't keeping the puppy because she didn't want to sell him, she claimed she was giving him to her sons and he'd be their dog. That was complete and utter BS, and we all knew it. That third pug was a menace, and it only made all 3 pugs one terrible group of troublemakers. They urinated on the floor so much, they rusted out the vents. And my nephews didn't really take care of the third pug as my sister claimed they were supposed to, as their dog. So she threatened she'd give away the third pug many times, but didn't, and would cry if called out on it because he's too cute. After like 2 years of that, it finally was too much for her and she gave the third pug away. She couldn't sell him like the prior puppies because he was fully grown and neutered. Somehow, the mother pug didn't have another pregnancy that took until my sister was evicted from the family property. We were kind of thankful for that. I ended up taking care of these pugs as much as my nephews while my sister wasn't home. The first pug that became the papa dog wasn't so bad, but the female that became the mama was a nightmare for a while. That dog developed some twisted need to poop exclusively on my sister's bed. My sister once came home to, I kid you not, 9 piles of poop from that one pug on her bed. I'd see this dog come running into the bedroom after going outside, jump on the bed, give you a look like she doesn't care what you think, and she would drop a juice wherever she felt like, which would usually be on the bed as soon as you weren't watching her. And this dog was punished for it many times, but refused to stop. It got to the point where we had to keep her caged and the bedroom door perpetually closed, but she kept finding a way in if she was let out of the cage. Now, just another quick edit here from OP. Avoid this and the next paragraph if you don't feel like reading about this dog. You know what I'll do? I'll put a timestamp on screen right now of where to jump to if you don't want to hear about what's going to happen next. And if you're listening on podcast platforms, just skip ahead. Eventually, it got to the point where I was taking zero BS from this dog. I decided one day she was not going to go back inside until she pooped. And the dog really did not like that, especially since it was cold outside and the ground was wet. I watched as she would sniff around, make a motion like she was going to take a dump, then just whine while looking around and move on. She did this a few times, then looked over at my sister's trailer and suddenly started running towards it all of a sudden with a look of complete glee on her face, like she was thinking, I want to poop there. I stopped the dog and I forced her to come back. She looked at me like I was a killjoy and just sat down to pout and stare at me. I told the dog I had all day, and she finally got bored enough to go back to sniffing around. She tried to make a break for the trailer 2 more times. Finally, after like 45 minutes, she couldn't hold it in anymore and took a dump. But I could tell she had more in her. So I kept waiting around and she finally took another dump because I wasn't taking her back to the trailer. The march back was like a walk of shame for her because she knew she'd lost. And she put up no fuss when I put her back in her cage. I kept up that routine until eventually she finally stopped trying to poop on the bed. Okay, I think we are done with the poop for now. So if you skip forward, you're safe. Eventually, my sister's at the time boyfriend brought home a puppy he got for free. This puppy was adorable, but grew into an absolute monster, bigger than my Akbash dog. He was huge and pooed and peed on the floor all the time, especially right near my middle nephew's bed. Okay, so the poop isn't really done yet. You know what? I think it's just part of this story, isn't it? It's kind of in the title. Anyway, when put on his tether outside, he would bark constantly. On days I had migraines, this dog drove me nuts, and he made it impossible for anyone to sleep at times, especially my father. This dog was so strong that he broke his chain tether numerous times. They couldn't use rope because he'd chew through it. He chewed everything. The 5th wheel trailer my sister was living in on our property at the time, she bought brand new. That dog just destroyed it, even worse than the pugs did. That dog also destroyed plenty of stuff belonging to my nephews. Clothes, shoes, toys, anything it could get in its mouth. I had to fix my middle nephew's shelves with duct tape. What? Your shelves? Goodness me. We told my sister many times that she had to get rid of this dog. We even gave her an ultimatum more than once, but she still refused. She finally sold the dog to someone who had one of the same breed and wanted another one, and treated us like we'd ruined her life by making her get rid of this dog that she could not handle. Soon after, my ex-brother-in-law took his kids away and refused to bring them back. Not long after, my sister was given the boot, and she was out by January. When my sister got an eviction notice from the family property in 2023, she moved in with her only remaining friend and started breeding her pugs again. And just like last time, she kept the cutest one. Then her best friend kicked her out, and my sister got a new boyfriend who was also her drug dealer and moved in with him. Then her abusive boyfriend kicked her out and left her in a broken down RV trailer on the side of the road, and then he left her with a car that barely ran. By then, she'd burned like 98% of the bridges she'd had because she's an entitled narcissist. She spent 2 days living with her boyfriend's sister and let her pugs pee and poop all over the bedroom floor and didn't clean up any of it, so she got kicked out there as well. I had to clean it all up when I came and got her and her stuff, and then I had to spend a day following her numerous places with all her stuff in the back of my truck while she was trying to find someone to take her in. Most of the people she tried to get in touch with wouldn't return her calls or messages. And I was the only one walking her dang dogs. She just sat in her car on her phone the entire time. And then she tried to force me to take her dogs home with me. But I couldn't. Our parents are my landlords. They said no. My sister flipped out on me for it. She claimed our parents were allowing me to bring her stuff home in my truck for the time being, and her dogs were a part of her stuff. But I still said no, and she lost her mind. She spent the night in a car full of junk with 3 pugs. She didn't even have food for the dogs. I had to buy her some because she was broke. The next day, our mum got her a motel room for the night, and she was completely ungrateful for it. Then she went right back to her abusive boyfriend the next day. I just dumped her stuff off in his front yard. And I left. My sister finally had to surrender the mum and dad pugs to a rescue. But she kept that puppy. I'd previously told her she needed to give away all the dogs as she couldn't care for them if she was homeless. She said she'd think about giving up the 2 parent pugs, but refused to part with the puppy. I told her that trying to raise a puppy on the streets would not be good for the dog, and she ranted that dogs were great for the mental health of homeless people, and that she needed him. My sister was previously in touch with a pug rescue, but stopped talking to them. I looked this rescue up and I gave them a call, and they were worried for the safety of the pugs. So worried that they called me back to ask for or tell me updates on the situation. Eventually they called me and said my sister had surrendered the 2 parent dogs to them, and they gave her $100 each for them. I don't know if that was a normal thing to do, or if my sister maybe extorted money for the dogs since they were pure breeds and a breeding pair. They didn't clarify. But both dogs were highly adoptable, they told me, and likely found homes fairly quickly, if not even maybe sent to the same home. My sister also had a tabby cat that she couldn't take care of, and begged I take him. Not only did I take in the cat, I refused to return him to her later. He loves it here, and he was raised here. When I brought him home, he started purring the second I pulled in the driveway, and I mean aggressively purring. He couldn't see where we were because he was in his carrier, but he knew by smell. As soon as I let him out of the carrier, he was running around the yard like, "I'm home." My sister previously took him to live in a drug den with her abusive boyfriend, and would take him right back into that sort of life if I'd let her. I recently had him chipped and registered in my name just to keep her from taking him away. She's an animal hoarder. She'll keep dogs and cats and then just won't clean up after them. And if she has the money or the room, she'll get more. Over 20 years ago, she was living in an old manufactured home with 20 cats that she was letting pee and poop all over the place. I had to clean it all up for her many times because she wouldn't do anything. And when called out on it, she'd cry and say the cats were like her babies. I tell you, you don't know nothing about cleaning cat poop till you've had to use a shovel. Oh my god. Those cats were just pooping on top of more poop. It was like shoveling moist clay. At least I clean up after my cats. Recently, my sister showed up wanting her cat back, and I kicked her off the property. She threatened to report me, but she hasn't. Probably because we know she's doing meth and crack and doesn't want cops snooping around. When she wasn't looking, I saw the cat run away from her and hide under my house. And normally he's friendly with everybody. Then he started following me and meowing like mad. He did not want to go with her. Okay, there we go. That is the end of that marathon story. I'm not quite sure how to react to that. Whether to feel like this woman is just completely ridiculous, or I don't even know if she is entitled. I think she's just like mentally ill. Obviously loves animals, but in like a disgusting way that isn't for like the love of the animal itself. It's for how she feels and what animals can do for her. You know, she doesn't care if her animals are living in like manure. She just likes the way that it makes her feel having lots of animals around and lots of pets that she doesn't care for. Like, obviously, she's got a lot of stuff going on. She does a lot of drugs, which is clear even despite the fact that we were told that she does a lot of drugs. And yeah, clearly she's not right mentally. But, you know, despite all of that being said, you got to think of the animals here and how she's treating them. And the people in the comments below, and this is why OP left that edit at the beginning of this post saying, look, I know I'm getting a lot of hate in the comments. They've been saying, listen, you know that your sister is like this and she's a bad person, but you've sort of enabled this life. You've enabled her, not life, I suppose, but you've enabled her to have all these pets, and you haven't actually done anything. Like, you should have called CPS or, you know, the RSPCA in England a lot longer ago. It doesn't matter if your parents or your family are saying not to. Like, you know, you got to think about the animals here, not just your sister. I don't know. I feel a bit bad for OP. Like you've tried so hard to help her, so you're clearly a nice person. Maybe you should have called CPS earlier, or the RSPCA, whatever you call it, the ASPCA, I think it is in America. So I don't know. What do you think in the comments down below? He should have done more, I think. But I mean, it is his sister, and clearly he wants to help. I won a jackpot on a cruise. Now my brother wants me to give him his fair share. Just as the title says, I won a small jackpot on a cruise a week ago, a little over 10k. My brother was with me when I won. After getting the hand pay, I gave him $2,000. Afterwards, he was passive aggressive for the next day. On the last day, he proceeded to demand his remaining $3,000 because he believes we should have split it evenly because he didn't win. I reminded him it was my money I put into the machine. Why did he expect to get anything at all? I told him he should be grateful for what I gave him, as I didn't have to give him anything. He's since been passive aggressive again now that we've gotten back. I've also heard from mutual friends that he's been calling me greedy and saying that I'm selfish. Okay, and there we go, short but sweet. The thing that I don't understand is you've been super kind already, OP, and said, you know what, like obviously I got a bit lucky here. Here, have $2,000. I put my money in, but you can have $2,000. I'll take 8. Realistically, I mean, all the money should be mine, but you can have 2k because I'm a nice guy. But no, your brother just goes crazy and says, all right, yeah, thanks for the 2k, mate. But actually, because I'm related to you, and I was also there that day, I mean, I'm not sure exactly what happened here. Maybe it was on a cruise arcade or something, and you were both playing like arcade games, fruit machines, whatever. Because he was next to you or whatever, or his family, he deserves half. Make it make sense. It doesn't. It can't. Now for our second story. Entitled customer mad we won't refund him for an item he bought 12 years ago. So, I work at a call center for a certain members only bulk store chain, specifically in the online branch. One of the perks we offer our customers is an almost comically lenient return policy. We started limiting certain electronics to 90 days from the date of delivery back in 2016. This will be important later, and our returns team needs to look over and approve any returns for orders over 2 years old, but by and large, we'll accept anything. I like this policy. It's a lot easier for me to just process a return than it is to argue with the customer for 20 minutes about how, no, sir, it's not our fault that you didn't think to open the box until well after 90 days, and now the computer doesn't work. I can get you over to warranty, but beyond that, my hands are tied. The customers like this policy because it means they basically can return stuff whenever they want, within reason. Returns usually approves the 2+ year request unless it's something egregiously dumb. The key word there is within reason. It's early into my shift. I don't think I'd even had my first break at this point. Phones are dead at this time of the day, as is typical once the holiday order rush and the post-holiday return rush subsides. So I'm sitting there trying to figure out what the F 71 down on my crossword puzzle is when a call comes through. I snap to attention, give my spiel, and I ask what the guy needs. Nobody came to pick up the stove I'm returning. They delivered the new one and took the gas range, but I still have an electric one to return. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, sir. I'd be happy to see what's going on. I checked the logistics scheduler. The only return this guy has is for the one that got picked up. I ask if he has the order number for the item being returned. He doesn't. I pull up his order history and I ask him when he ordered the item. For context, the order history we see on our end only goes back to about 2017. I think August of 2013? So, it's gonna be one of those calls, huh? I'm not looking forward to having to fart around in the DOS system to find this guy's order number, but at this point I'm figuring he just had an old phone number on the order, and that's why his pickup isn't in our scheduler with the rest of his orders. After about 20 minutes of checking every single membership number on file in our DOS system, the guy claimed he'd never changed his membership number at any point, he was wrong, and multiple assertions of, the last people just pulled it right up. That's BS. Not only do you not have the order number, but it's tied to your wife's membership number from over 20 years ago, and it can't even be pulled up with your info at all. Believe me, I frickin' tried. I eventually find the order. The return is cancelled because our returns team didn't think refunding a 12-year-old stove because it stopped working after 12 years of no issues with it, judging by our records, is in the spirit of our return policy, since it's highly unlikely the issue is caused by a manufacturing defect at this point. I could go on about planned obsolescence and how things used to be built to last, but unfortunately 12 years is honestly a pretty hefty shelf life for a home appliance these days, and it's definitely well out of any warranty we have. I explain this to the customer as gingerly as I can, and he demands to know why we didn't tell him this years ago. I'm grandfathered into your 90-day policy, aren't I? When did that change? Why didn't you tell me years ago that you weren't going to accept my return anymore? I need to escalate this right now. I try to explain to him that these sorts of situations are handled on a case-by-case basis, and it's less that there's a hard limit now, and more that a 12-year-old appliance starting to have issues can't really be considered a manufacturer defect that we're obligated to refund you for. He's not having it, and he asks for a soup. You got it, sir. I kick him over to my supervisor, who also is like, a stove not working after 12 years isn't really something we can blame on the manufacturer. It's not like we sold him a lemon and move on. But not before he gives me this gem. If I'd known you wouldn't accept my return now, I would have returned this years ago. So he's basically just admitting he wanted us to pay him to haul away his junk, rather than actually thinking his stove reaching the end of its lifespan was a manufacturer defect. Dear God, I'm so glad this job pays well. See, the problem with people like this entitled customer, is that it ruins things for the rest of us. Like, this is an amazing returns policy, and I personally love companies like this. And I've got an example of something that happened to me myself. Like, it's just great when companies understand that, you know, it doesn't have to be a set date, 730 days or whatever it is exactly for something to go wrong, and then only then, you know, if it's 731 days you can't get a refund, 730 you can, whatever, or the 90-day return policy that a lot of companies have, whatever. Like, having goodwill and being like, you know what, we trust our customers not to take the mick. If there is a legitimate issue and it's outside of the standard times that other companies have for their returns policy or whatever, it's fine, don't worry. Like, we would rather deal with that, get you a new one, or hopefully just have you as a customer for life, rather than sort of screw you out of however much money you paid on a product just because you didn't return it in time, or something happened to it outside of the 90 days or whatever. Like, I love that. It shows trust in a customer base, and I'm more likely to shop with that brand or continue being a fan of that brand for my life, rather than just a one-off purchase. I've been screwed over by a lot of companies, right, where you miss the end of a free trial by a day or something and you have to pay the full amount and they won't refund you. I don't think that makes sense in the long term. However, because of people like this, there aren't that many companies that do this stuff, and there's a reason why. You know, ASOS, for example, have just recently or last year, they've changed their refund policy where you could refund everything. Now they're saying, no, there's actually a limit because people are abusing it. Similar here, if people start abusing this sort of thing, it's just going to not be anywhere. I mean, it's uncommon anyway, but now no one's going to do it if people abuse it like this. Now, thankfully, you didn't give them a refund, which is good. But I don't know, if more people did it, you'd probably have to stop this policy, which is a shame. Now for our third entitled people story. Don't extend favors to co-workers. This happened when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. I live in Philadelphia, and my company gave us the day off if we planned to attend the parade. My plan was to see the parade with my roommate, hop in the car with her after, and drop her at her mum's in New Jersey on my way to my mum's in New York. The day before the parade, I was in a Teams meeting with some co-workers when this girl, we'll call her Juniper, mentioned she wanted to go to the parade, but would have to travel from Jersey to Philadelphia and then from Philadelphia to New York to do so. Now, she and I are friendly, but we're not friends. However, for some reason, I decided to extend a favor, and I mentioned to her that depending where in New York, I could just drop her off on my way to my mum's, since I was planning on going there anyway. I also mentioned we would just have to make a quick pit stop in Jersey to drop my roommate off. I asked her where she would need to be dropped off. She tells me Times Square. Technically on my way, but I'm only going past the city, not through it, not to mention all the tolls. She tells me this without offering to help pay the tolls. I tell her the best I could do is drop them at a train station close to the outskirts. She told me that would be awesome and that she'd let me know if she ended up attending the parade or not. Next morning of the parade, I see a message from her asking if this other girl, let's call her Emily, could join her. I know of this girl and I've met her a few times, but I don't work with her directly. However, I know that she and Juniper are really good friends. I tell Juniper that if she and Emily are going to the same place, then that's fine. A couple of hours later, she messages me again. They're not coming to the parade, but coincidentally, the hotel they're both staying at is only 30 minutes from where I'm dropping off my roommate. And would I mind picking them up from there? Definitely told her that wasn't going to work for me and that I was sorry she was going to miss the parade. But I definitely learned my lesson. Even if we're friendly co-workers, don't extend favors to people who aren't your friends. Put "to give a mouse a cookie" on my reading list. Give them an inch and they'll take a mile. That is the moral of the story. I don't really have any co-workers that I see, day to day, right? I work from home pretty much every day. I have editor Stevo, who is up in Scotland, but obviously he's not here in my bedroom with me. But I don't have co-workers that I'm kind of friends with or friendly with that I could offer a lift to or something like that. I just have friends. But I do sort of get the difference. You want to be nice to your co-workers, but yeah, there's a difference between being friendly and being really, really good friends. And maybe OP is right. Maybe you would only do this sort of thing for a really good friend, not for a co-worker. I'd like to think you could do it for a co-worker though. I think this woman is just entitled, and I don't know what she really was expecting here, for you to just ferry her around the US and be her free Uber. It's insane. I don't know. Now for our final entitled people story. I put her out. During one of my college programs at a very popular theme park in Florida, a magical rat planet of sorts, I lived with roommates. I still do not know, even after all these years, why people do this. Why can't you just say Disneyland? It's obvious. And no one at Disneyland is going to care if this random person on Reddit has a story about their time when they were working there or whatever. What the heck? I get it if, you worked at a small company that you didn't want to name and you were anonymous on Reddit and just wanted to tell your story. But really? Disneyland, Florida, or Disney World, whatever it's called, Florida? Jesus. Anyway, let's get back into it. The program offered housing. At the time, they had 4 apartment complexes. One was for foreign college students, and the other 3 were for North American college programmers, or CPs. Each apartment came with a different price tag that they automatically snatched from our ridiculous work checks weekly. The newest and most bougie apartment came with 2 refrigerators, but it was expensive. The second most expensive was quiet and close to the foreign college student complex, and then there was the oldest one, the cheapest one, known as the party place. It was considered the hood or ghetto of CP housing. Keep in mind it had 2 pools, one with a hot tub, a gym, a tennis court, and was where the CP bus station for the carless was located. It was also in walking distance to multiple stores and restaurants. No matter what apartment we chose, we had to share rooms with one other person. So I opted to save money. I chose the cheapest apartment. I'd extended my program with a prior roommate and friend, so we decided to share rooms. I'll call her Kendra. Kendra and I met Jamie, Kelly, and Hallie, fake names. We had room for one more roommate as it was a 3-bedroom. After a month, we received our new roommate, Shonda. Shonda was older, but still in her 20s. I wonder if her surname is Paul. She also had 2 young children back in her state, a son and a daughter. We asked her, was she cool leaving her babies for a year? She explained that she'd had them young and never got to explore herself or be free. We all decided to mind our own business because it wasn't our business. Shonda meant what she said. She was definitely free. A week didn't pass where she wasn't drunk, clubbing, partying, or staying over some random dude's house. Again, we all minded our business. Shonda made friends with a girl I'll call Amanda at her job. Amanda partied hard as well. And one day, Shonda and Amanda got into a drunken brawl in an alleyway behind a club. Shonda complained to us about Amanda and her attitude. We listened but remained silent, minding our business. Now, Hallie is Muslim. Due to this, we had a rule that guests were to be announced before coming in so that she could dress appropriately if need be. Didn't matter if it was a male or female, all guests were to be announced. We all followed this except Shonda, who just randomly showed up with Amanda. She was female, so Hallie was okay, but we were all irritated. It was a Friday and they were getting ready to go out. Amanda walked in and we were confused because last we heard, her and Shonda had had a falling out. But again, we minded our business. Amanda started judging our apartment's layout, asking why we had it set up like that. We explained we enjoyed changing it up since all the apartments had literally the same decor. Shonda was in her room showering and getting dressed, while Amanda continued being rude to us in the living room. Amanda asked how to get to the faux downtown area of the magical rat planet. Jamie said, "Take the F bus. It will take you right there." Amanda replied, I know that already. I meant by car. I don't ride the bus." Jamie is the kind of person that will throw hands, and her face showed it. Jamie remained quiet though and kept typing on her laptop. Hallie asked Amanda what they had planned, and she, with an attitude, said they were going to faux downtown and then clubbing. Some other things were said that made Hallie laugh. Now, Hallie was annoying. She was very loud, boisterous, she scream talked and laughed loudly. Most found her a lot, and though we hung out occasionally, I usually kept my distance, as I had and have severe anxiety, and she had that kind of personality that spiked it. Well, Hallie started loud laughing, I mean full on cackling, and Amanda looked disgusted. "Oh my god, can you shut up?" Hallie didn't know what to say. My roommates and I all looked at her, and I'd had enough. I calmly but firmly spoke up. "You need to leave." "What?" "I need you to leave our apartment now." "Lol, why?" "You've literally been rude to everyone since you walked in. You need to leave now." But she's loud and annoying." "This is her home. She pays rent here, and you don't. She has a right to be loud in her home. Get out." I opened the front door and Amanda walked outside. Shonda comes running from the back asking what happened. We explain everything and I tell her that Amanda isn't allowed in the apartment anymore. The other roommates agree with this and Shonda is furious. The next day, Shonda asks for a roommate meeting where she says how we treated her friend was wrong. I asked her, didn't she herself have a fight with Amanda due to her attitude a few weeks prior? She explained that they made up. My roommates and I told her that Amanda still wasn't allowed over, as she was rude. About a week later, Amanda came over, but she stayed on the porch. She knocked, and when I answered the door, she apologized. I thanked her for the apology. She asked, was it okay if she came in now? I turned and I asked my roommates, who still said no. Shonda was angry and put in an apartment transfer a week later. She left stating that she couldn't live where her friends weren't welcome. Yeah, we didn't care. Amanda, I can tell she is like the stereotypical, what I think of as an annoying American woman. I think that is Amanda, right? Like the voice, the accent, no offense, like sort of like Hollywood accent. I don't know what you call it, like the Hills accent, where they're, I don't know what it's called as well. What's it called? Where it's like, you know, the Uncut Gems, where the last syllable of a sentence is like really grainy and gravelly. Like, so girls would talk like this. They'll go like, yeah, and I was just sitting on my door and I came across something amazing. And they're like, I think Kim Kardashian does it. They'll go, yeah, I'm doing really well. Like that. That is what I have in my mind for Amanda. That's the voice I was trying to emulate. Let me look it up. Let me see if I can find it. Actually, a comment once told me that I had it, and it really angered me. Let me see what the internet is saying. Oh, it's called vocal fry. That's it. Vocal fry. Yeah, the first video that comes up is vocal fry. What is it? Who does it? And why people hate it. And yeah, Kim Kardashian is on the thumbnail. So someone once said that I did vocal fry, and I thought, you know what? I definitely don't do that. Like, I would never, ever even attempt or even think about doing that. It's just a horrible thing to do. My sister seems to think she's entitled to my trust fund and lied to try and get it. There's a bit of backstory to this, and I'm not sure what's relevant, but I'm sure you'll tell me if I blather on too much. Mostly, I just need to rant. So, I am a 38-year-old woman, and my family is a little messed up. I essentially have/had 5 parents and 3 different groups of siblings. It's a bit much. As a child, I was living in the US with my adoptive parents, and a lot of stuff went down that wasn't great. So I moved back to the UK when I was 9. I had a lot of trauma and the beginnings of a rather serious drug problem. And so my US dad set up a trust for me before he died so that anything mental health related was paid for, and I didn't have to stress about being able to sort myself out as I got older. It's been rather handy over the last 30 years, paying for a home when I was a teenager, therapy, rehab, Basically anything needed to help me not die. At some point in my teenage years, I made contact with my biological parents and their other kids, and I was welcomed, in quotes, back into the fold. Some of my full siblings had issues with this. Fair enough. It was a big change to everyone's lives. My little sister, now early 30s, apparently found it particularly hard, and so we've never gotten along, and we've been almost no contact now for a decade. This has become particularly apparent in recent weeks after she contacted the solicitors who are in control of the trust, pretending to be from a rehab facility in the US. She sent them an invoice for a 3-month stay, requesting payment to the bank account of a friend of hers in the US. The first I heard about this was a phone call from said solicitors offering their commiseration that I was due to enter the facility, wishing me luck and double checking the details. I am livid. This is tens of thousands of pounds that she's tried to steal from me. Money that she has absolutely no right to. She never met my adoptive parents. She's not owed any money from them. She's lived a perfectly normal life with both of her parents, her other siblings, holidays, uni paid for, no big dramas. And she thinks that she can just take from me because she wants to buy a house, and thinks that I should help her out because I ruined her childhood. Except she can't even just ask, she has to try and steal it. I don't understand at this point, guys, how OP could possibly have ruined their childhood. Just by coming into their lives a little bit later, how is that ruining your childhood? I mean, I suppose she was young when you came back into her life, but wouldn't you be happy to have an older sister just appear in your life as a young girl? I mean, I think you probably would be, I don't know. Anyway, let's carry on. I have no idea what to do about this, because if I go to the police, then it will create even more drama in the family that I could do without, and I feel like that's exactly what she wants. Our parents will side with her, and she knows it. I don't want to give her the satisfaction, but I'm just so mad that she chose this specific way to try and take what's not hers. It feels like such a low blow. Yeah, obviously she's getting sweet FA, but what the heck? Now that is the end of the post, but there is an update to this one, and also OP left an immediate edit to add some more information saying, because a few people have asked, my father had to bail me out of a trashy situation a couple of years ago, which included getting a flight to another country to come and get me. Obviously, I insisted he accept reimbursement for his flights, despite him not needing the money, so he would have had the details of my solicitors and the fund from that time. My sister often visits my parents, so I suspect she would have seen the information in my dad's office at some point. I've certainly never mentioned the fund to any of my siblings. I guess that's the questions in the comments of how do your siblings even know about the fund, which is a fair point. Now the comments down below, unsurprisingly, say that the OP needs to go and do something about this, right? Because what's going on is illegal. So somebody said, you really should go to the police. If she had the audacity to do this, there is no stopping her from escalating even more. If your parents side with her, that is also useful information. You can't trust them and should be very careful around them. If not, just cut them off. Do not let these people treat you like this. Family or not, you deserve respect, and I could not agree more. As I said though, there is an update which was posted after OP read through the comments. So here is the update. This got pretty overwhelming pretty quickly. I'm balancing getting things done, and I'm tied up with not losing my mind, which is always fun. Solicitors are reporting everything for me, as they are indeed required to do. Turns out I'd misunderstood and thought I had to get involved, but no, it's all on them. And I'm going to just let what happens happen. I'll be setting up a meeting at some point to go through all of the transactions made over the last 20 years or so, just to make sure that nothing else nefarious has gone on. Thank you everyone for the reassurance that I'm not doing something wrong by wanting this sorted, but I'd appreciate a little less speculation on my life and the role my parents play in it if you could manage that. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I wasn't going to do that, to be fair anyway. You know, OP's not given too much context. I suppose I did sort of speculate a little bit earlier by asking why your sister would be annoyed that you came into their life, but whatever. Not important. The main point is that I agree with the comments. What's going on here is potentially very, very illegal. So yeah, I mean, the only thing to do is just, yeah, talk to your solicitors, and if you have to, get the police involved. Simple as that. But I mean, the main point is the audacity of your sister to say, I found out about a trust fund here. You know what? I feel like I'm owed it. Who knows why? But I just feel like I am. So I'm going to go and try and get it illegally. If anything, just got to rate it. All right, now for our second story. Entitled neighbor called police to my parents' house for my husband hunting on their land. My parents are retired and live in a little house on about 7 acres of land. It's not a big plot of land, but it's cozy and private, just outside of town, and about 6 acres are woods with a creek running through the center of the woods. It really is a very beautiful piece of land. Sorry, I've just got to stop you there. 7 acres of land is not a big plot of land. Now, I don't know which country this takes place in, but goodness me. I mean, if you had 7 acres of land in London, which is where I live, I mean, it doesn't even matter if you were in the most deprived part of London. That would be millions and millions of pounds. So, fair play. With the woods and creek, they get lots of animals going through, including deer. A couple of years ago for Christmas, we got my parents a few trail cams so they can see what is going through their land. My mum likes photography and she's been able to get lots of photos of deer, foxes, wild turkeys, coyotes and other wildlife going through their yard. Okay, so this is not in England then, obviously. As you may imagine, this is some prime hunting land. My husband occasionally enjoys hunting and has from time to time gone down there for deer season, but he doesn't do it frequently. My parents have had several people stop and ask them to hunt their land, and they always say no. Frankly, it's just barely big enough to legally hunt, and they don't want people all over their property all the time hunting. They have no problem anytime my husband wants to hunt, which isn't often, but he's family. There is a neighbour who lives down the road who badly wants to hunt on my parents' land and has been told no repeatedly. They don't allow hunting. Last year, my husband was in the woods and found a tree stand installed that wasn't his. Unfortunately, when they checked the trail cams, the SD cards had been removed. No proof it's that neighbour, but they suspect him. My parents travel a lot, so it would be really easy to do without their knowledge. My husband took the tree stand down, and I believe the cameras were replaced with new ones that don't need SD cards. Last month, before deer season started, the neighbour again asked my parents to hunt, and they said no. They don't allow hunting except their son-in-law if he wants to hunt. My husband decided he'd try and get a deer this year for deer season. So he got a deer permit and went on the first day of deer season. He shot a decent sized buck within 10 minutes of getting in the woods. My dad was awake and heard the shotgun blast and came out to see if my husband needed help. My husband got the deer field dressed, then my dad, who's the nicest guy you'd ever meet, got his tractor out of the garage and drove it to the woods, scooped up the deer in the bucket and put it in the bed of my husband's truck. So, hunting ended pretty quickly into deer season this year. About an hour later, a county sheriff's deputy and a game warden showed up at my parents' house. They said they received a complaint of unauthorized hunting and deer poaching. The officer said that same neighbor, they actually gave his name, called and said they'd been told repeatedly there was no hunting allowed on that ground. They'd seen someone go into the woods with a shotgun, heard a shot, and then somebody with an orange tractor picked up the deer and put it in the bed of a black pickup truck. In our state, if you're caught poaching, they can confiscate your firearm, any hunting gear you have with you, and any vehicles used in the course of hunting and poaching. So the neighbor was really hopeful that they'd take my husband's gun, truck, and my dad's tractor. My dad said, "This is my house and my land, and the orange tractor is mine. The black truck belongs to my son-in-law, who has permission to hunt here anytime he wants." My husband produced his valid deer tags and all was good. Also, screw that neighbor who had to be watching the woods with binoculars. There's no way he could have seen all that from his yard otherwise. I mean, yeah, what a life this guy must live, because I completely agree. How would you know that that was going on your neighbor's property unless, firstly, you have binoculars, almost definitely. I mean, if you have land of 6-7 acres, even if it's just like next door for me right now, I'd struggle to know what was going on unless I was looking through binoculars and seeing the specifics of someone having a deer in their truck or whatever. But secondly, what surely must be going on here is this guy is sitting by his window all day, every day, waiting. Unless he heard the sound of a truck and just like rushed to the window and got his binoculars out and was like, right, I can get them. That is probably what he did, to be fair. Anyway, it just sounds like a very, very nosy neighbor. But yeah, why are people so weird about hunting is the main thing. Like, look, I'm not for hunting at all. I don't agree with it. But why are people like surely you respect someone else's choice when it's their land? And what is the problem with this person hunting? Like, why is the neighbor trying to get this person arrested? Is it just the fact that they were told no and they're like, well, okay, fine. If I can't, then no one else can? Just weird. If you want to hunt, get your own land and hunt on that. I mean, don't. But if you want to, you can.